All right, hello everyone. This is the first demo ever demonstration of the grab bag live. I have two people apparently watching, one of them is me apparently. Okay. All right, perfect. All right, let me get the notifications out for everyone. This this is an experiment. This is my yay, hello EL. What's up? On the chat. How do I show chat here? There's an echo. Oh no, the reason why there's an echo is just to make sure that it was on because I'm sharing my screen. I was paranoid if I alt tab to my YouTube to see. Yeah, it's gone because it was on my phone. I took my phone out to see if it was on the YouTube it was there or not. So perfect, perfect. Let me just send it out to the Twitter world. All right, so we are celebrating the greatest night of my mother's life and the future greatest day by extension of my wife to be, my concubine, the breeder of my children, my trad wife to be, Nikki the Hegelian, obviously. Hmm. Actually, no, I'm kidding. I saw a great deep fake by Charles. Uh, I managed to crack the rat of Hegelian idealism with an excellent deep fake that Charles, I think, posted. The guy with the Bismarck Wojak PFP, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I am going to see. Basically, so this is just going to be basically a Twitter space, just live streamed. I just wanted to experiment with live stream because we still want to do a Tookies Mag like year in review retrospective, or we get a bunch of guests on like EFAP, we get Prude, who we owe our careers to, basically. Dan Baltic, who we also owe our careers to. And just everyone, at least a guest, like to say hi, hello, a year in retrospect kind of thing. Drop in, drop off. Guests drop in to say hi. They can drop off if they want to. We discuss this and that and the other thing. We weave. We do a little weaving, as my mentor Donald Trump says. We the art of the weave. We don't ramble here in Tookies Mag. We weave. We weave the subject matters. So let me just shout this out to everyone. Hold on. Hopefully the link won't get fucked over here. Well, I guess I got the stream demonetized. We are live. Doing some midnight weaving. Okay. And there we go. There we go. All right. All right. So right now we have a picture on here for a little acronymity, for some synchronicity. This actually right here is Carl Schmitt's, I believe, 95th birthday. I got this from the Carl Schmitt organization's last fan club. It's a German one. It's called. Hold on. How's it called? It is called Carl Schmitt Gesellschaft EV. Basically, it's mostly a fan club and collection of basically everything you want to know about Schmidt, all his publications, all of his interviews, be they written and or actually interviewed on television. He actually was interviewed on television a handful of times. Somewhere in the archive of like German broadcasting, there's over like 2 hours of Schmidt Kino, actually, of him talking. It's the mid 80s. He lived until 85, if I recall correctly. I think he was 85. Yeah, so he lived long enough to be interviewed for television. And so here's a picture of him celebrating his birthday. If you notice, right here, you could see Ernst Junger, his basically the cool Chad friend to Schmidt. And the thing, if you notice about very Schmidt, if you read his excellent biography, I've been reading a biography. I was preparing something. I was preparing considering doing it a Schmidtmas special, a Carl Schmidtmas special, basically, where I want to talk about the life and times of Carl Schmidt. Basically, not only an overview of his entire work, but also his the man himself. Because I realized, Carl Schmitt's very important to us, in our scene and stuff like that, and to politics in general. but we know very little about the man himself. Action Press, I think, on Twitter. Well, I have his issues. I have issues with him overall, but Action Press, who's a big Schmidt simp, um, knows a lot about his personal life. But for the most part, in the scene, if you want to go research into Schmidt, stuff like that, we all talk about the concept of political friend and enemy distinction, sovereignty, designs on exception, the starter pack stuff, political theology, and concept of political. And maybe we will go to most people go after that to like maybe nomos of the earth, land and sea, but I really like theory to partisan, dictatorship. So what I really wanted to do is that basically, later on for Christmas or starting December, I'm planning on doing a sort of Art of Darkness style. Shout out to them, by the way. Great channel. I love their pod very much. And also worth subscribing to. Actually, their Patreon's great. We don't give y'all shit. We give y'all prestige. We pay y'all in prestige to be a top tugger in Tookie's Mag. You don't get any bonuses. You pay for the prestige of it's called quiet luxury. You don't get bonuses. You don't get perks. You get the perk of saying you're a top tugger, right? You don't need all these fancy show off perks. It reeks of desperation. All these bonus episodes, Q&A, fan interaction. You get paid in prestige here in Tookie's Mag. All right, that's what you get here when you sub to our Patreon. But yeah, shout out to our Darkest guys. They're great. They're fantastic. But I was like, I'm reading this. I'm reading this biography for Schmidt. I've read 2 biographies about Schmidt, which is Gopal, Gopal, in Hindu, wrote a review, an intellectual biography of Schmidt, which is more about a very detailed theory cell view on Schmidt and his works, in his relationship to Weimar and his life, and it's very political, very or theory cell. Let me say that we'll be defining the word political again and again every time we discuss Schmidt. But excuse me, excuse me. And then you have this excellent biography, which is actually a cradle to grave. Hello, Penultimo. Shout out to Penultimo. Great artist, great man. One of our top and toughest tuggers. Shout out to him as you see him in the chat. But yeah, so Schmidt is another great biography, which you cannot be found on any gift giving areas. Is Reinhard Mehring's biography, Carl Schmidt, a biography? It's a fantastic chunk, or 500 plus pages of just his life, and I highly recommend getting it on Amazon. It is a physical read. You can't get an EPUB, at least not through that means you're thinking. But it's a highly recommend. It's actually a look at Carl Schmidt, the man himself, from cradle to death, and the personality. Like he was a Zoomer. He was a Zoomer theory cell. Based. Yes, I would like to get burped by Nikki Higalian girl at Sovereign House, right, where we hang out, based MAGA communist, and do heckin' cool drugs. So cool, so edgy, right? But sorry, I got an interesting message from Capitalisimo. Anyway, so this is just basically going to be a Twitter space for all intents and purposes. A visual Twitter space. I should have gotten this. I should have gotten the visuals up. Well, this is my first time learning the magic of, dare I say, sharing a screen in real time. So for the most part, for the topics at hand, it's mostly just going to be, it's going to be me weaving, dare I say. I am beating the mommy GF allegations. Thank you very much. Oh no, there we go. Yes, I am beating the mommy GF. I stand against the mommy GF. The mommy GF is the ultimate manifestation of the therapeutic state. All right, everyone misunderstands. To be a genius is to be misunderstood. A common Nietzsche W. Yet again, I was being misunderstood on like our great latest episode of the Sidebar, by the way, which is with the excellent, amazing, stellar, and far more talented Catherine D. Shout out to her. She is definitely a true soul in spirit. Excellent guest. Was fantastic to have her on. It was just there's a fundamental disagreement. I definitely think with how neutered is the wrong word. Neutered is the wrong word. Infantilized, maybe. Domesticated. They all use the word domesticated. How domesticated the human being is. I think mere act of a simulation of sincere human warmth will go a long, long, long way, basically, in further domestication. So I do think a voice in a box or a decent enough hologram could easily, basically, sterilize the human race sheerly through the feeling of true love or the approximation of true love. True love is an actual genuine sincere interest in you, the participant of the conversation, or you as subject of a conversation, right? Because we don't have conversations ever, not really, not the Zoomers or not modern man himself. Modern man himself is part of the endless conversation in terms of dialectics or anything, but in terms of meaningful discussion of you as an entity, as your being, your feelings, not feelings in connection to the therapeutic state or in connections to the polity or no most of the time, but sincerely just about you, the personal as the universe upon itself, in disconnection from the society, right? The ultimate personal. I definitely do think are getting no doodles, no doodles. You're getting random screenshots I meant because I just woke up actually. There's a interesting thing. I wanted to do a live stream today because I'll be busy this week. I've been wanting to do my birthday. Now, my birthday may or may not have already happened. I'm not gonna give doxing materials to certain individuals. But like, Mark, we went over books addressing new influenza market at the time. Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's a it's 100% true. That's why you get the deeply, deeply warped, childlike art of the Memphis style in Google. I mean, no sharp lines, no sharp edges, everything, or the bean mouth phenomenon. You have these deeply, deeply stunted children cartoons, right? Adventure Time, for example, or what's the other one? What's the other time? Steven Universe with modern animation is all soft edges. They all have bean mouths. The only one with a strong edge is on the women's chins. They can cut a knife with how sharp they are in most female animations, be they in gaming or otherwise. And yeah, that's 100% true, penultimate. But hey, where was I? So yeah, so overall, so this need of human warmth. So that was what I was discussing about that. Of a very there's this excellent. If y'all remember it a long time ago, old heads remember this. A long time ago, there was this neat or this is our guy, a true cell at the highest order. One day, this true cell he looks up, how to make friends, and 30 minutes later, he gets arrested for SA assault for grabbing a woman's arm in the middle of conversation. Yeah, right, because this is like the first human being he's talked to in months. Nonetheless, a woman, a female, the species, nevertheless. So we all remember that. I think it was in England, of course, with the Brit bongs. Um, yeah, so something like that, where a man just desperately reaching for human contact, for human warmth, and just absolutely gets shut out by the therapeutic state. Yeah, it was a cringy. Yes, it is cringy, but this is basically an infant or literally just I did literally spelling friends meme. Uh, but yeah, a person who's completely stunted, not even stunted, deprived. And in both senses, stunted as a personally stunted from growth, but also forcibly stunted. Like we're instead of aristocratic foot binding upon women's feet when they're young. Like Honor Levy. Honor Levy should have is if you see her feet, she's the type of girl who should have been foot bound when young. But we're instead of being foot binding when young to prevent untasteful feet growth at later age. What we're experiencing is soul binding, or personality binding, or human contact binding, where we are bounded for our human. It's purely technical, right? To go full Elul Kaczynski, all our human interactions are completely that interactions between mechanized cogs for all intents and purposes, right? So when we are socializing, why would any man talk to a woman on the street? Right. That's the whole point when you ask your boomer parents, like back in like 2014, 2015, during the normie days, like, oh, just go talk to the girl, the cashier, right? And we all have that Ryan Gosling gif meme of him in the like with the beers, and he looks at the girl in the alleyway, and he just walks the fuck away, right? It's completely ridiculous. Like there's very, very, it's so regime, much like basically a child-sized daycare. There's the playroom. The playroom is where you talk to your other students, right? And when you get out the playroom, then it's complete regimented. You only have it's a complete categorizations of human behavior. You have these boxes, and only then can you interact in certain aspects of certain acts of play or physical manifestation of personality traits in those certain limited subsets of criteria boxed areas. So where was I? So yeah, so with how mechanized that is, I can definitely see. I mean, and the thing is, of all this is a anti-human. It's not even completely. It's not even like the based right wingers will fight this off. I mean, to a certain degree, they can fight off the AI chatbot menace. The chatbot so good that it understands you better than anyone in your life, right? Just through sheer algorithm searching and basically user input, that kind of thing. It's horrifying. It's genuinely horrifying. Um, yeah, so that was my contention. My contention is I definitely do think once it's exposed, at least 40% of the internet population will be affected to it at least a little bit. And then you get Moore's law and like a preference cascade, basically. Well, after that, hmm, after about a few years of that, another 4 years, it's the same thing with Twitter. Twitter, or any or social media event in general, you know, um, a handful of people use it at first, and then you have a beautiful Pareto distribution of elites, and then finally, the hordes come in, and then everything is decayed and rot. But instead of Athens with a AI, mommy or be yeah, get this human context simulator, an idea of human interaction simulator. Like yeah, that's just it's not Athens building the foundation of like a pure a citizenry of men of glory, a man of fumos, right? A man of ecstasy, a man of genius, a man of health. It's a fentanyl factory. It tastes with fentanyl factory at first, potentially, but then once you get even a pinch over the Pareto distribution, you just completely wipe out any sense of actual quality. So yeah, that's my final word. Well, actually, not my final word, but my final unprompted word on the mommy GF question. But so, anyway, so this is the first grab bag live. We're currently 18 minutes in. Hmm, actually managed to wrangle 5 people, and I probably should have shielded this more. But I was like, I don't want to show. I've been away from the GCs a little bit. I've been away from Twitter actually. I've been, dare I say, real lifing it. I've been forced to touch the infernal grass of the reality around me, the supposed fake and gay reality around me. Um, so And oh, and also big news, or actually an announcement, a revelation, if you will. I am the rumors about me are 100% true, everyone. Yes, all 5 of you. The rumors about me are 1,000% true. I am a faker. I am a fake neat. That is right. Sadly, I will not be in a risk crowd with the soul much longer. I have gotten an opportunity, dare I say, well, an opportunity, quote unquote, opportunity in the capitalist, cruel, neoliberal hellhole that is reality around me. I no longer can live off my aristocratic genius and the arts and books that I find myself within, and also the leftovers of the Sheba Bull run that I had. I will be, actually I have gotten a job. I have gotten a job, or I have been forced to live in this cruel reality. How will Game Gang ever recover? I know, right? How will Gabe Gang ever recover from me not being an aristocratic need anymore? I know it's true, but yeah. So that's why you got a little lull mm, in my content, or in content in general from me, or even Twitter posts. I haven't even done a Twitter space recently. Discord stop faking, become a real neat. Um, I know. It's sad. I know. It's horrible. I don't have Mr. Thiel. Thiel. We have our. The problem is Cap and the last midnight moving hour with friend of the show Michael Pohl. We have lost the rights to Dan Boltic as house lawyer of Tookie's Mag. We have lost the rights. That damn coward Kurtzman from Our Darkness has stolen away from us when he lost the bet in Midnight Movie Hour. So by losing our Lord Baltic as our patron, and the fact that Mr. Thiel is far too busy, yes, subsidizing the lifestyles of very middle-aged e-girls, I am forced due to lack of new patronage to provide my own patronage. It's horrible. Is it at least an aristocratic job? Anything done by an aristocrat becomes an aristocratic job to a certain degree. If he puts enough of his own spirit into it, it becomes an aristocratic job. It becomes that way, and yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to say the least. For the most part, we thankfully, due to a variety of reasons, we might be the next couple episodes will be bangers though. Yeah, I am not being a bricklayer. I'd rather be homeless than a bricklayer. Um, I will live off the neat bucks. I will. There's like boomers around me. I'll live there. Like there's this one old lady. I'll break into her house and live in her attic, right? And to steal food. No, because yeah, guess what? Because boomers, right? The boomers. She's not giving the house to her like grandchild. Well, I think she does have a grandchild, right? The base to boomer. It's actually 100% ethical. I'm being Zoomer Robin Hood, right? From the fact that the boomers are the most like degenerate, selfish. It is 100% ethical, right? This is not legal advice. This is not legal advice. But if a Zoomer were to break into an elderly person's home and live in their attic, right, and just absolute neat max in their attic and steal their internet, right, to shit post on Twitter all day in their attic and steal food from their fridge at night is 100% ethical based on partisanal lines, right? But as a Zoomer partisan, right, in the ideological belief in fundamentally having what is entitled to us as a generation, right? If the boomers, they denied their fundamental responsibility as an elderlyship of our civilization to get our inheritance. This is like Henry Bolingbroke all over again in Henry V. Excuse me. Henry IV is just being a little bitch and not abdicating the throne like he should and giving it to sensitive young man Henry V. And so you have to, you know, uh, redistribute the means of boomer production one way or the other. So yes, 100% ethical. Hobo maxing. A hermit. What is it? No. What's the term when you break into someone's house and live without their consent? No, a hermit. Is it a hermit? No, it's not a hermit. What's it called? Fuck, I forget the term of like squatting. Yes, aristocrat squatting. Squatting. Yeah, squatting as partisan warfare. Absolutely. Weaponized squatting. Right? Squatting. Yes, thank you, Penultimo. We have to squat squads. There we go. There we go. Zoomer, the squat waffen. We absolutely have to by force. If they will not give their homes to us willingly as their descendants, then we must do it by force. Absolutely. And totally kidding. In Minecraft, of course, we must use our diamond pickaxes to destroy their golden houses made of gold or butter as we used to call it back in the day. Scuba White Wing Squad. Squad's TM. Exactly. Mm. And so yes, I saw that dynamic on Twitter. See, if I was more prepared for this, I get like I said, I just woke up from my nap. I took a 4-hour nap. I tweeted this out. I'm like, man, I want a live stream. I want to do a live stream. I can't do a live stream tomorrow, due to a variety of reasons. I'm having a Halloween party actually, with it's an elite human capital elite party. It's a on on the no basis kind of thing. So all the definitely the tuggers who watch our content for free, or quote unquote tuggers, absolutely untough tuggers, people who complain about the audio quality in my Eric's interview will definitely not be attending my aristocratic elite IRL human gathering for my Halloween party. But so it was like tonight or never, basically. So hold on. So yeah, I just woke up I went to sleep at 7. I woke up at 11:30, and I was scrambling to get this up, adjusted, and so far it's actually not bad. Squad, this is squat on the boomer's boat and claim it. This is our frontier. This is our promised land. That could have worked in. I wonder if that could work in Florida, right? Because everyone, like, all the people running away from the storm. Oh no, it's a hecking hurricane in Reno, and run away, right? Yes, the Mannerbund, the Zoomer Mannerbund. People who were unafraid. All these Zoomers who were live streaming the hurricane, right? You could hypothetically have squatted. There's a dozen or so sensitive young men in Florida could have easily taken a bunch of boomers' boats during the hurricane. That probably would not have worked legally, but it should spiritually it should work. It feels right. It feels right. Captains who abandoned their ships have forfeited the right to call themselves captains of those ships. They have abandoned the rights in the Homeric terms. The boats belong to the sensitive young men willing to brave the storm, brave the danger. The real purchase is not purchase of capital. It is conquest we are facing. We're risking our lives in the face of a storm. What is not claimed, it is conquered. Right? Absolutely. Yeah, it's not. Uh, we're squatting Elon's rockets for free ride to Mars. We are refugees. Um, not stolen, squatted. Not stolen, not squatted, conquered, conquered. That's what boat stealing from boomers is. The thing is, libtard boomers don't boat. Because they don't boat the way, because at least for the most part, large section of Florida boomers will be on our side. Even then, our side of things, quote unquote, they still won't give they won't neat max. They won't give a neat lifestyle to their absolutely deserving of neat bucks uh, uh, descendants. So they're still not on our side in that way, in a way that actually matters. But most of them will at least have a base Trump flag on their boats. So is it ethical in a right wing Leninist framework? Is it ethical to steal boats from cringe boomers if at least they're doing at least enough of a part to support uh, Trump? That is the ethical question of the day. Um, but no, so away from boat stealing, I've been thinking. Okay, I want to. I even put a little folder called Gabe's presentation. So hold on, I'm getting super experimental here right now. All right, and this is the last. Oh, it's not being shared. Hold on. Present. Hold on. I want to share another screenshot. Damn it. Hold on. Do here. Oh, I can't. Okay, here we are. This is the maybe the Bay Area. Is it? I can't remember. Is the Bay Area lived? Oh yeah, the Bay Area of Cali. True, we can steal their yachts. Yeah, no, it's not steal. Conquest. Conquest. What the aristocratic 135 IQ Anglo does it is conquest, right of conquest. It is not. It is not young scholar behavior to do that. Completely different. It is not mental emergency with a knife behavior to do that. It is 100% justified because we're putting it to better use. It's the same reality with those books things. I've debated people in real life about this. Like there's little libraries you see it sometimes in like bougie or gentrified areas. Like I have never ever abated the rules of the little library. The little library is like, oh, leave a book, take a book, that kind of thing, and it's like looks a little like a birdhouse but for books. And I have never abated by that. When I used to live in Florida, I there was this beautiful copy of Plato's Republic. And I'm looking at this, and you look at other slop. 90% of the things in those little book houses are like from women or boomers. Sometimes tasteful boomers. There's a lot of boomers in South Beach, so sometimes you get some actually relatively decent stuff. And like it's like objectively speaking, like I can. It's the reverse of the they stole my bike meme. Like, oh, they stole my bike, but the happiness of the earth increases. This is the reverse to it. This is a risk of the soul. If I know me, right? I'm a high IQ into aristocrat of the soul. Right. If I only take one book and leave all the other good books, they're going to go to retards, people who are objectively undeserving of the wisdom of knowledge of these authors. I know those authors. These authors are my uncles. They're my fathers. They're a paternal contract between the answers before and after. They're not going to be wasted on retards. Or a lot of the time, for example, if the books get or over flooded, which happens a lot, by the way, it's just people just dump a large amount of books into the a little library. and eventually the workers would just grab them and throw them away, right? So it's either getting thrown away and being unread, or worse, being read by people who do not deserve the wisdom within those books, right? So I've never abated. I've always, if anything that's of quality and merit in those little things. Yes, exactly. Like most high trust institutions, they only work in very small exclusive communities. Exactly. Exactly. The thing is, and the criteria for the little book things, they put it in parks. They put it in, like, there was one in Boston. I got the ethical slut from that. It was feminist literature, and just, oh my god, it was awful. It was awful. And the thing is, it's based on capital and it's based on comfort, right? It's based on it's warped kind of compromise with modernity or urbanity. Basically, it is a compromised position, right? You don't put it where the, people of the most deserving. This is not the symposium, right? This is not the republic. You know what I mean? It's not. These are not citizens. These are, college students dumping excess books they don't need, right? And of course, in their theory of mind, everyone is as, you know, it's not going to be wasted in their point of view, right? Because the stupid egalitarian thinking, all, you can give books to anyone, it will be benefit to everyone. No, it is a detriment to some people, right? You need an aristocratic vanguard, that kind of thing. So that's absolutely why. This also goes for food. There was also a homeless version of this with some refried beans I saw. This was in Princeton. I was hanging in Princeton one time, and you see all these beans. And the thing is, there's not that many homeless people. There's a lot of Asian cops in Princeton, by the way. So you see this one homeless dude pissing on a bookstore in an alleyway. I remember this. And these two Asian guys are just trying to talk him to, hey, put his penis inside back his pants. And I see I'm watching this entire thing for like 30 minutes. And I'm walking by the food version of a, in and out kind of a library. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, the calories that I take from this, I'll be using it for my Substacks, which yes, I do write essays. My essays, I'm working on essays for the new wave. It lightly touches on a new wave controversy, right? But it's the reality of the objective truth of quality, right? Do not throw pearls before swine, that kind of thing. Um, and so, yes, always, it is always ethical to all top tuckers. It is always ethical to take more than one book from those little libraries if you know that book will be wasted on the plebs, right? The plebs do not deserve Plato's Republic, right? This is a fact check by true Republic patriots, right? Do not waste knowledge that belongs to the men of gold on the men of bronze, right? You need, men of gold deserve golden thoughts, and same thing for their golden beans. Um, I dropped a few copies of BAM in those book shaking things. I was like, I wonder how many Red Scare 50-year girls I created. Let's go. Let's go. Yes. Yeah, how many tasteful nude posters? Handsome posters. How many handsome posters have you created on Twitter with that event? You're doing God's work for agitprop. For, doing, and see, agitprop is good. It makes them scared, right? It makes them like, I have come for you. You're being seen. Aristocrats of the soul are in your area, right? That kind of thing. That's their version of the porn pop up, right? Or corn, sorry, corn pop up, right? It's their version. They're terrified, right? They feel fear, they feel instinctual fear, or like, oh, that can't be real, because we all know Wendy Lewis, a 40-year-old single mom, is not horny and probably not in our area, right? It's the same thing. But in this case, the potentiality of handsome young right wing men dumping their books, flexing our knowledge and our esoterica upon it's a flex. It's a flex. It's a tasteful flex. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Dasha has done. I will not comment further. Dasha has done a variety of things to the Bronze Age, to the Baptist community, um, Baptist or Baptist community. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, so always ethical too. So as a Zoomer vanguard, as a Zoomer Leninist, right? The Zoomer right wing Leninist, it is always ethical to squat on boomers' boats in order to claim those boats, right? Because they have denied their responsibilities of the circle of life, which is accepting their deaths and giving their stuff to the younger aristocrats of the soul. And they have also denied us the of having an aristocratic ways of knowledge preservation, aka you do not waste Plato on the plebs. Um, so that is the moral. This is the actual ethics, and Speaking ethics and using morality to justify actions, I actually wanted to share with y'all a certain screenshot. So, in sort of getting prepared, um, in short of getting prepared for, let's see, hold on. There's this wonderful quote in Theory of the Partisan I find immensely interesting. Let's see, here we are. This is Theory of the Partisan, actually, and I highly recommend. There's actually a decent um, interview with the Booklet from Hell guys, the centrist types. Super cool. I do like their podcast quite a bit, actually. I like Jack BC's a fellow Spangle male. Of course, I have to give him the respect of a fellow Spangle male. Never shit talks another fellow Spangle male. No, speaking of Spangle male, Spurgler Acolyte also did an excellent Twitter space. I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but anything that man does, along with Alejandro, both men, excellent theory cells. Mm. They were talking Nick Land today. Apparently, sadly I missed it. I was too busy being forced to socialize amongst the masses. Sadly, but I highly recommend after this, or even leaving here, if you all want to actually go listen to Twitter space. So this is actually a quote. Theory to Partisan is a banger. It is an absolute banger. This is a gem. So in this, Schmidt talks about the idea of enmity, EMNITY, enmity, and the types of enmity. I'm going to be going between shitpost and theory cell, so bear with me. So here, Schmidt talks about the idea of ideology. And there's this interesting thing of there's this great clip from Bill Maher recently, where Bill Maher is, of course, the base centrist libtard, right? Like, oh my God, do you know that like 90% of the lockdowns were actually bad and stupid and crazy ideas and actually actively harmful to human civilization? Hold on, I need a burp. Excuse me. And actively harmful to human civilization. And Mark Cuban, of course, throws his hands up, like, yeah, that was bad, but it's done with good intentions, right? Which is any action done is any action taken by a human being for 99% of the time has quote unquote good intentions. Like, that's not a justification. I was told the lockdowns never happened. Listen, it was only a month, Chud. The time frame always gets shorter every time you bring up the lockdown. It was only a month. It was only a week. If young men, that glorious quote, those tweets, it's always a great reminder. Like after you've been, enlightened or red pill for a long time, it's always great to have a familiar slop taste of just how much the left wing hates young men, young white men, obviously, the most. And it's like, oh, young men don't need to be coddled. If access to reproduction care, democracy doesn't attract them, then nothing will. They don't deserve to be coddled, right? I'm not putting down the screen. Yes, but imagine saying that about yeah, allegedly, of course. Yeah, we all collectively decide not to have Thanksgiving. Yes, the idea of Thanksgiving has been completely ruined. Many things have been ruined, actually. Like Justin Murphy had to discover hanging out with your friends and to go drink from First Principles in Austin recently. About even just going out to drink with your friends. It seems just a revelation, basically a human interaction. Like it just the atomization has been absolutely accelerated. And speaking of atomization, I might actually pull up and read to you one of my favorite Nick Lane essays, which I should have brought up during the Catherine D episode, but the spirit of the mommy geist possessed me. So I'm going to read this out to you. There's two big quotes from me. I could read the whole thing, but there's two big quotes from this. I will read to y'all. This is the idea of the partisan. Quote: If I occasionally speak of modern theories of the partisan, I must emphasize in order to clarify the subject that actually there are no old theories of the partisan in contrast to the modern ones. There is no place in the classic rules of war for the partisan in the modern sense of the word. Under the previous European international law, he is either, as in the cabinet wars of the 18th century, a kind of light, especially mobile. Sorry, from I'm looking at far away. It looks mobile, but regular troop, or he simply stands outside the law as a particularly heinous criminal, and it is French word. As long as war is still contained, something of the idea of an armed duel in chivalry, it cannot be otherwise. All right, so that's an important thing. Lenin will actually discuss this idea in his biography, not his biography, his notebook on Clausewitz. We'll discuss this later. With the introduction of universal military service, however, all wars of ideas become people's wars. And soon situations arise which are difficult and often even impossible for the classical rules of war, such as the more or less improvised levée mass levy, or the Freikorps, volunteer corps, and the Fractures, sharpshooters. This will be discussed later. Fundamentally, war is still contained, and the partisan is outside of this containment. Indeed, it becomes part of his nature and existence that he is outside of any containment. The modern partisan expects neither justice nor mercy from the enemy. He has turned away from the conventional enmity of the tamed, contained war and entered the realm of another, a true enmity, which increases through terror and counter-terror and culminates in annihilation. So what Schmidt is talking about here is total enmity in the partisan. Of course, the partisan at the end of the day is a person who is not a soldier, a clear as day soldier. And this is actually I'm rereading Hoppe for a certain. I'm going on a certain other podcast as a guest later on this November. We're talking some basic NRX foundational Old Testament stuff. So I'll be discussing that Hoppe, the foundation, one of the old foundational theory cell text, foundational theory cell text with Jack BC of Book Club from Hell, and so this idea of the of the sharpshooter. Of course, he brings up the sharpshooter because one of the notorious examples of this is during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. If I remember my war lore correctly, it involved Germans come into this town, this French town, and they kick the French people's ass, the French soldiers' ass, through their amazing train autism technology. Trains were actually a big deal in the 1870 war. It's actually very technologically advanced war. There's this great book by Paul Lockhart that talks about this called Firepower, the history of weapons and or warfare. He talks about not only the idea of weaponry itself, mixed unit tactics, spears, guns, boats, planes. Literally, he goes from the beginning of mankind, basically, and Chinese people using like barrels of gunpowder like Donkey Kong, right? Because they did have some idea of like explosives, right? Of course, putting it in a tube and shooting actual balls or projectiles was a classical capital W white man invention. Right, the idea of shooting things came from Europe, right? But the Chinese actually did literally do it Donkey Kong style. Apparently, they actually would put a bunch of gunpowder and like barrels, run all. It's like that scene from not Twin Towers, from the Lord of the Rings movie, and like instead of like a giant instead of a giant orc running with a giant torch to like light up the bomb, and it's just a Chinaman. It's a small Manchu running around with his braids and his hair flying in the wind. Obviously, it's not. This wouldn't be. This is during a Han period, so this wouldn't be a Manchu. But I just like the hair idea. So imagine their long ass ponytail flowing through the wind, trying to light up this barrel. Right. So literally Donkey Kong explosives, literally barrel explosives. Um, yeah. So where was it with it? What was it? Oh yeah. So yeah, trains were very very important. A German train technology and able to rapidly deploy trains, deploy either support and resupplyment was absolutely necessary in the Franco-Prussian War. And trains carried that war in a lot of ways, other than discipline and common Germanic excellence in warfare. And so the German soldiers in this town, they take over this town, but the local gun club, for all intents and purposes, these members of these local gun club, Joe Blows, these are not combatants. These are not soldiers. These are not people with the flag, the flag of Louis Napoleon III. They come in and start shooting at the soldiers. And these are quote unquote partisans. These sharpshooters, these from the sharpshooting club, literally become partisans in this sense. The partisan is a unmarked individual. A partisan is fundamentally, you cannot distinguish a partisan They're literally the enemy within, a fifth column, if you will, right? They are creatures of total enmity because to be to create total enmity is to become a part of you to certain degree, right? So it is basically fundamental. If you could argue even a war crime in that sense, it is a war crime. Fundamentally, the oldest law of war, right? In a proper monarchical sense of warfare, warfare is lawfare, right? Warfare is lawfare. You don't get random Joe Blows to represent you or attack you as a prosecutor, right? The prosecutor only goes within the realms of the legal within the court, right? So and that's the court of battle. So how warfare worked during the monarchical age is that the king, of course, this is a classic Hoppe argument. It comes from his own treasury for the most part. He has to raise funds on a personal level, right, from his subordinates to a certain degree. He has to negotiate with the fellow lords and like, hey, listen, will you come and fight with me? Henry V had to do this with his lords. Hey, I need X amount of money. I have enough of my own money to fund it, right? But for X amount of extra cash, I need X, Y, and Z, that kind of thing. So the monarch bears the cost of the war, either by literally physical cost. Henry V fought all his own battles. The financial cost, you have to bankroll it yourself, and have to, on a personal level, negotiate the from your subordinates why you're fighting the war and what are the clearest day benefits for your people for war and conflict. And so, from the act of ownership, of complete ownership, you have this sense of responsibility, right? The whole time preference idea. So a king will have to have his armed combatants, like his soldiers, and soldiers are basically lawyers in this sense. Lawyers have being a representation of, again, this is a land disputes between, let's say, Mary Theresa of Austria. I think her name was Mary Theresa of Austria, and the classic was the land grab of that part of Germany. I always forget. I always forget the name of that part of Germany. But it's the classic land grab between Frederick the Great and Maria Theresa of Austria. It's very simple. You know, you make it clear, this land is mine. You make a declaration. This land is my land by right. Give it to me. And of course, you make up some political formula to say the land belongs to you. Obviously, Mary Teresa says no, and they both Silesia. Thank you, Blair. Top tugger, top Gabe defender. Thank you, Justin A.W. Blair. Great artist, by the way. Excellent artist, people. Uh, uh, all Top Tuggers should be vernacular Patreons and give support to Mr. Blair. Not only just for his amazing quality of his artwork, but his much more higher quality of him being my top defender. Yes, Silesia. Um, so there's is a lawsuit basically, and I have my lawyers, you have your lawyers, and the conflict is a contained war. Literally, that's what he brings up dueling, the idea of chivalry within this. But the idea of chivalry is just the art of armed conflict. Chivalry, I believe, is a French word. It comes the art of horseback riding. It's connected intrinsically to the idea of it's like the a Christ I can't say the Latin word, also horsemen. The closest thing to a middle class basically, was, the men on horseback of Rome. So you have, these knights, or you have these, men of arms, and the men of arms are basically the prosecution and the defendants. And the people of the land do not matter. Remember, the politics in a monarchical state, politics is above the average man. It is separate and distinct, right? Politics is already given as default that the monopoly is held within the aristocracy, the responsibility and the ability to make and partake in war is already held within the operating layer. The operating layer is the aristocracy and their men at arms. So in a proper medieval conflict, in a proper medieval conflict for the most part, is fundamentally of that between only men in arms versus other men in arms. It is also a classic case of you don't even kill, you don't even want to redact. Sorry, this is YouTube. I'm going to have to say redact apparently. Redact. The aim is not even to redact the soldiers necessarily, because you yet again, due to the fact of clear ownership, right? This is a legal dispute. Why would you want to? The aim is not to harm these people or end these people. The end goal for Frederick the Great is I want this piece of land. You're my soldiers. By doing what I want, you benefit in turn. For example, it also this is also an example of Henry V. Every most cases when the king, for example, Henry V, in after the Battle of Agincourt, usually you take hostages and then you sell them back to their families. Don Quixote, the author of Don Quixote, Miguel de Cervantes, for the most part was during the one of the many conflicts in the Battle of Lepantos, Lepantos, I believe it was a pseudo conquest, a pseudo crusade against the Ottomans. um, he was captured, and the Turks, even across religion lines, this is the state of proper legal conflict or proper legal warfare or the contained war. The Ottomans have a bunch of these infidels. Miguel de Cervantes and his older brother were captured, and the church raises up funds to buy the family, the older brother, because of course you can buy the older brother. So Miguel de Cervantes has to wait like 10 more years or 7 more years for the church to raise up funds and his family to raise up funds to finally get him out of a slavery from the Turks as well. But yeah, it's much more conducive when you have the idea of ownership and the idea of warfare is not as an ideological or even necessarily moral thing, but as land disputes, literally legal disputes. Even the combatants themselves. I have your lawyer. Your lawyer is valued, has an intrinsic value of being your lawyer. I can buy him. Yeah, yeah. During the Reconquista, yes, Lepanto was a crucial last battle to kick Muslims from Spain. Yeah, thank you, Pinocchio. Yes, sorry, my Reconquista lore is a little hazy. Yeah, Miguel de Cervantes, the author of Don Quixote, was a combatant in that war. That's how he got crippled. Actually, was he got shot in the right shoulder, if I recall correctly. So yeah, so basically, because the soldier is not a moral enemy, it is not a total enmity. A soldier within a medieval conflict is just your your bitch ex-wife's lawyer, which you can settle right. Selling off, it's basically a settlement. You settle the conflict by saying, hey, listen, I've defeated your guys here. Or you go to their families. I have your knight. I have your guy. You put in resources. This is an asset. It doesn't make sense to either waste the asset by destroying the asset when I can just sell it back to you at upcharge, right? And so most of the time you want to take war captives, right? Or even when you destroy or take enemies. For the most part, all incentive structures point to you capturing them and selling them back at upcharge, and that was the proper way to do combat during medieval warfare. Of course, there's exceptions that people bring up the time Napoleon mass deleted some POWs during Egypt and also Henry V during the Battle of Agincourt. But the only reason why that because it was a state of emergency. This is the whole concept, the exception thing, is you can't have a bunch of Frenchmen when you're like there's a handful of Englishmen. You're a handful of Englishmen. You get super lucky in the Battle of Agincourt, so you defeat a bunch of these guys. But the thing about the issue is you're still out from the prisoners. The prisoners outnumber you like 10-1, and you know for a fact that reinforcements, your enemy is sending reinforcements. Like, I'm sorry, what are you gonna do with all these like you can't lock them away. You know what I mean? Just for every one Englishman, there's 10 Frenchmen. So of course you're gonna have to, take out the POWs. It's sheer practicality. As soon as they're gonna fight tooth and nail. It's the whole idea. You don't want to fight a war in two fronts. Literally, people from the reinforcements and people literally in your camp trying to break free to help the reinforcements. Yeah, so no, it was pure game theory. It's pure rationality. You had no other choice for Henry V and Napoleon. I forget the Napoleon's case, but most likely it was just pure practicality. No other choice in that regard. And other than extremely rare exceptions in medieval conflict, when you take the prosecution's an agent of the prosecution or of the other party within the conflict, you most part want to keep the prosecution alive because they're an asset. They're merely just an extension or a tool that you can use or a tool you could sell back at upcharge. It is free from ideology. Medieval warfare was, let me rephrase, monarchical warfare from first principles is much less bloody and much less wasteful. It's much less dysgenic that way, because you're not trying to totally destroy the enemy. You're just trying to give them bruise them enough to say, "Listen, fine, I'll settle out of court." Right? Mary Teresa Austria says, "Fine, I'm wasting money feeding these men. I'm wasting lives. You have to train these men. Yeah, you have to train these men. I'm wasting all these time. Even a handful of deaths is." Pinching my pockets here. So fundamentally, just through sheer, it's the same thing with legal warfare. Who has the deeper pockets? 90% of the time, deals with lore with court. Same thing here in terms of applies here in monarchical warfare. Is that Mary Teresa finally realizes? Listen. I'd rather just lose the land at this point rather than wasting money and resources and literally quality, literally assets. Remember, soldiers are assets. They're assets of the state. And so she says, "Fine, I'll basically settle out of court, aka take my men back here." So here, Frederick, you get the land, you get Silesia. So Frederick gets Silesia, and this is the classical thing is that the opinions and the people of Silesia do not matter. And I mean this in the best way possible. This is not a total war. Frederick the Great isn't going there stamping out anyone of Austrian descent, anyone who speaks the Austrian dialect of German, right, or something, or forcing them to convert to Protestantism instead of Catholicism, or anything this lines, right? His control is absolute. He doesn't need to do all that, right? That's where you have this famous line from Frederick the Great of the people. I give my people freedom of speech. Why do I have freedom of speech? They say what they want. I do what they want, right? Because what they say has no impact on what I do. His power is complete. It is regime complete for the most part. Speech from the pros or speech from the masses only matter in the fact that is there elite vanguards or counter elites that can use those speech as weapons to stab you in the back with. If you have a regime complete, if your regime is complete, and you don't have any, there's no counter elites within your structure. The pros say don't matter. A toddler throwing a fist in your legs is not going to matter. You're not gonna get scared when a chihuahua runs up at you, right? Because the chihuahua can't hurt you. And of course, a Doberman can. When your body will react differently, instinctively react differently between a chihuahua running up at you, a toothless baby running at you, or a crack addict, or a pit bull Doberman, right? Because for 100% one has no power, despite how many times it throws a punch at you or how many times it bites you, versus the pit bull and the mentally crisis individual with a knife. Uh, so there's a fundamental difference here. So with wars of ideas, but this is the problem with the wars of ideas. The war of idea activates the total enmity or total warfare, which is the total elimination of the enemy, right? Total annihilation. And this is something that another influence on Carl Schmitt actually is Lenin. Actually, Schmitt was a big fan of Lenin, even his try he wrote one of his first pieces during the German Workers' Party era was the triactic state. It's a very interesting piece. It's a very interesting essay describing the National Socialist Party and the dynamics of the National Socialist Party and the differences between classical structure. What does the National Socialist state look like? And of course, this was in not 1936. It was probably before the Pact of Steel, if I recall correctly. This is right. This is when he's getting their good graces. So he writes a fluff piece, basically, trying to describe not only what the National Social State is he also describes how the state basically is the foundation and it holds up the social and the political. Well, it's above the political. It's a very complicated kind of thing. He tries to he theory sells the shit out of it to describe fundamentally the difference between that and his actual preferred state, which is the monarchical structure, where the German state is above society, like in a spatial sense. In a spatial sense, the administrative state, the statesman, anything realms within the state is an operating sovereign layer above the society, right? The society is a separate layer. They are not mixed together. In terms of the problem with democracies or liberalism, is that you're forcing the operating layer to operate on the same layer as the thing is operating. And it has a lot of literally in terms of even technical operations. There's a lot of just bugs in that system. A lot of bugs, which is it flatlines things. It allows certain bugs and malware, to use technical terms, to basically cross pollinate rather than having a sovereign structure where the operating layer of the military, right? Because you don't have mass deaths for the most part, past the Alexander the Great sieging people, right? For the most part, in a monarchical warfare, the only people dying and conflicting are people who are specifically designed, or people who are trained to die and fight in the conflict, right? And are willing to bear the risk of dying in the conflict, right? So you have a operating sovereign layer, and the terms are clear, right? Which is either party, because in terms of game theory, what either Frederick the Great wins, which he did, right? Which is basically fundamentally, I'm going to throw my money and my resources into this lawsuit. And either Mary Teresa has the better soldiers or has more money in her pocket or more resources to throw. And whoever runs out or deems to hit that barrier of investment, like, I can't risk more of my men or more of my resources, taps and says, okay, I'm taking my toys and going home. Either Frederick the Great wins, either Mary Teresa wins, or there's a pseudo stalemate, right? Splitting Silesia in half, for example, or is a great example of this. But there's no enmity after that, right? They go their own way, they lick their wounds, they make plans for the future for the most part. But Frederick the Great isn't looking to destroy the entirety of Austria, right? And vice versa. Austria's not looking to destroy the entirety of Prussia because it A, doesn't have the means, B, and it doesn't, to even do that would be a Pyrrhic victory upon itself in terms of administrative structure. These two sovereign bodies do not benefit from each other, and the local and the locals have no bearing upon this. Yes, this is 100% true. The irony of the portrayal of pre-modern times where people were supposed to be treated as disposable property when it isn't until Napoleon at Total War became the norm. Exactly. Bertrand de Juvenel literally makes this joke in On Power. 100% true. That's I if I can manage it, also I'll bring up that quote as well. That's exactly right. The nationalist war, the nation. Well, that's the quote unquote. I know we all love nationalism here. We all know this, but it's a classic NRX talking point. The irony of ironies is nationalism was the first tool of the leftists, right? Which is it's the most effective tool. That's why it still works. Even you get the rust off. Of course, it's so rusty and so ancient at this point. You have to really grind the rust to actually see the leftist markings are on there, but you can actually clearly see the leftist markings. It's an excellent is to read the biography of Bismarck, right? The English translation of Bismarck and how he felt about those damn yellow and gold and black colorings of the German flag. For him, the current German flag, the gold, yellow, and black, it'll be no difference to him than a BLM flag in terms of Otto von Bismarck, the arch reactionary. It's fundamentally the same. It comes from the same impulses and from his POV. Um, but where was I? Yes. So yes, when he becomes a nationhood, you basically you give everyone in a nation a gun. Right? Democracy, and civilian warfare. There's this great line from either Hippolyte Taine, the English, not the English, the French historian Taine, Taine. He was an elite theorist, basically, for all intents and purposes. So talking about the French historians. Um, Pareto mentions him in I forget the name. It's the Sociology of Elites, I believe. He mentions Hippolyte Taine and Gustave Le Bon, two French pre-elite theorists. About fundamentally the French Revolution was that of a counter elite, that kind of thing, and it trickles down to the masses, that kind of thing. Theory cells write giant capital-sized tomes for themselves to justify the conflict, and then they rile up the masses. They write little retard proof, for the working class to use them as muscles and to fight their conflict. Where was I? Where was I? Yes. So in terms of national warfare, or warfare of ideas, this is total enmity, which is the total destruction. Instead of playing the game of chess, why play the game of chess? Why do I limit myself within this framework of chess? We're going to actually Spanish Emperor being amongst Spanish NRX circles. There's a ton of good talking points regarding the actual institutions of the Spanish Empire being much more capable of keeping local cultures and traditions. This is true. This is true. Helen Andrews has an excellent article about the Spanish Catholic Church and its relationship to the natives of Mexico. I think it's Helen Andrews. It's I keep on getting Helen Andrews and Heather. What's it called? Heather McDonald. I'm confused in my head, but no. So fundamentally, where was I? I get lost. Um, yes. So Spain. Hold on. I'm jogging my memory here. So Napoleon nationalism. Yes. So with warfare, with in warfare of ideas, it gives there's this great line from Hippolyte Taine. Yes, compared to the latter nationalist policies, post independence that pushed a homogenous national identity to destroy all idiosyncrasies. This is 100% true. You see this with the standardization of the French language in Napoleon. And again, I'm a Napoleon simp. I'm Napoleon's strongest soldier, right? But the reason why the French language got standardized is because it comes from a mechanical necessity. Thank you, Thingle. Thank you for the birthday. I my a cunt is certainly pleased to be appreciated this time of year. Now today isn't my actual birthday. It might have been last week. It might be next month. I as well be spoiled prematurely, right? You obviously do not know this. But yeah, but either the same, thanks, bro. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, so of course, France has many dialects. Even up to that time, Napoleon. Yet again, remember, because up to that time, soldiers were literally you had to specific people who were trained, who were when you have mass soldiers or mass indoctrination or mass deployment, right? You have all these people from all around Paris, right, or all around France, and they can't speak to each other, right? Because they literally cannot speak to each other because the dialects are so different. So Napoleon had to start the process of standardized French, right? Because of the total state, basically the practicalities of managerialism. It's really managerialist concern to take away all local idiosyncrasies of the French language, dumb it down, and remove all these different regional dialects because you need these to be 100% slopified. You need to slopify the English, not the English, slopify the French language in order to the military units can be properly coordinated. Right, so just because you never know. Yeah, okay, this is a problem when you have a democracy, or the operating layer becomes mixed with the thing is operating. Because in a nationalist state or in a total state like Napoleon's, since anyone has to be a soldier, it's implicitly implied within the social contract of that state that the average Joe Blow, French flow, whatever the version of Joe Blow is for French, you know is a potential soldier. In reality, and most likely is a soldier. Since uh, since this is a possibility, yes, the Italian language was literally created from one dialect and forced to join all previous kingdoms. Exactly. Yes, it is a political necessity. It comes from a managerialist need. You need to. It's Fordism, as Renard Camus would say. It's to make the gears work 20% more efficiently, right? Because it just makes it does make sense. Like from a Napoleon standpoint, like shit. I have to use the mass of men. I have to use any man I can get. I can only use I can't use purebreds. I have to get any mutt off the street. The thing is, the mutts off the street can't even talk to each other, so I have to force the mutts to speak the exact same way. So, in case of another war or another conflict, because all wars are now total wars instead of just using purebred or select uh, juridistics. Uh, Jurisprudence. I forget that there's a term I'm thinking of, which escapes me at the time. Instead of only selected specials or professionals, right? Instead of having a professional class that is like accountable, trained. Since the potentiality of mass warfare is now normalized, people must be prepared for mass warfare. And since mass warfare requires communication intrinsically built into it, you have to slopify and basically slopify the diverse cultures into one monoculture, or at least the pseudo monoculture, in order to make your much 20% more efficient, right? Just through sheer game theory, the people who can communicate more easily 20% of the time will defeat the opponent of the same equal quality or even higher quality if they can't even speak to each other in the same language, right? You need a lingua franca. You need a universal language, at least amongst your friends, in order to communicate quicker and to pass information quicker and so forth. The speed of information is actually important. So that's a great example. Is you again as a pro Napoleon, so as a nappy bro, like that's 100% correct, right? That's the problem with the democratization or the massification of warfare. Sam Francis also talks about this in Leviathan and its enemies, which is an excellent basically Bible of the managerial state. Yeah, so this is the idea of war of the mass, right? This is where let's go back to theory to Tarzan. So there's contained enmity, which is literally, like I said, warfare as lawfare. There's no difference between warfare and law, right? It's basically just a lawsuit. and you're not getting any Joe Blow off the street to prosecute your case. You're getting a specific lawyer, a person who is trained in a specific class. Please forgive me. I just spent too much on a police trade in AR. I don't know what that means, but I hope the trade was worth it. But thank you, Vapor La Anvil. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, with mass warfare, you just throw in enough human bodies to win. Basically, it's the cheap cocaine instead of the long duration of training and building upon muscles. Mass conscription or a partisan warfare. It is a cheap cocaine. It's giving yourself coke to get that energy, right? It's short term games to win intermediate length of victories, right? Rather than super long term thinking, which is to only gain muscles from limited intense exposure of particular muscle groups. So that's the main difference. Yes, the way Spain still has multiple languages within itself is a reflection that it was too weak to become a serious player in the modern world. True. That is 100% true. You see this today. You see this with whole, the whole issue with Christopher Columbus, right? What they're saying, he was a Basque, he was a Basque Jew or something like this. Yeah, I could see the Groypers saying, all the evils of colonization is because of him, because he was Jewish. It's like same thing where they blame Jews for the evils of the Roman Empire. It's like third world host from Chungus, third worldism or some shit. But yeah, that's exactly right. It's 100% right. You see this at the end of the day with the fracture of Franco's regime. But yeah, so that's the major conflict of the time. What Schmidt is describing here, which is an excellent expansion on the theory of the partisan. Sorry, excellent expansion of the concept of political going down. Okay, we all know foundation of politics. Say the line, Bart. Say the line. Schmidt is friend and enemy. Actually, no. Hold on. Say the line. Hold on. Oh God. Hold on. Let me share the screen. Hold on. Present. Hold on. There we go. All right, y'all see this? All right. Hold on. Say the line, Schmidt. All right, it should be playing. Okay.
Volk kann mit sich selbst identisch sein, wenn es in einer eindeutigen, klaren Weise einen Feind hat, wo klare Freund-Feind-Unterscheidungen sind, wie heute im Nahen Osten oder dergleichen, ist die Identität ohne weiteres klar. Freund heißt in diesem Falle die intensivste Gruppe und Verbindung von Menschen. Und Feind heißt eben die intensivste Spannung.
Yes. So thank you, Schmidt, for saying the line. Saying the line. Basically, that was Schmidt saying, "My friend, my enemy." I wish they spoke sausage. I translated. I used AI to translate. It's on my Twitter. Basically, it's just Schmidt giving the starter pack. Classic friend and enemy. Friend is the most cooperative. Enemy is the most like antagonistic relationship. The most antagonistic group there is your enemy, and vice versa is your friend. That kind of thing. The basic starter pack explanation of friend and enemy. This is part of an interview he gave in the 70s, I believe. And apparently somewhere, there's this great site. Hold on, let me I'm finally getting the hang of this. Presents slide. Okay, slides. I can do slides. All right, hold on. Present, stop screen, present, share screen. Hold on. Do I have here we are. All right, share. All right. So on the screen right now should be the Carl Schmidt Gesellschaft website. This is basically the Carl Schmidt Foundation, the kind of thing, from my understanding. It's a collection of all his interviews, all his notebooks. And he's like, because back in the day, if you're to visit a guest, you have a guest in your house, or you're to loan someone a book, you write it down on like a notebook. So these people even collected all the people he ever loaned a book to. That's how detailed. That's how much of being a Schmidt shell these people are. It's great. Yeah. So apparently, so this is Schmidt during the 70s, if I recall correctly. This is in Carl Schmidt in conversation with Don't Care, excerpt from a TV interview with Don't Care on June 19th, 1970. Yeah, so there's over 44 minutes and 44 seconds of Carl Schmidt keynote somewhere out there in the archive of German broadcasting that's being withheld from the public. Um, this is him talking about the Austrian painter, and this is him talking about Friend and Enemy, which you should be able to see. And it's an excellent website. It has his entire biography, his entire timeline. This is also an excellent secondhand resource in researching Schmidt. Um, yeah, so in terms of Friend and Enemy. So where was I? Why would we talk about Friend and Enemy? We're talking about Spain. Yes. So Schmidt was alive all the way to the 1980s. What are his thoughts on the painter? Oh God, let me bring up another excellent. He basically, what are Schmidt's ideas of the painter? All right. Basically, he basically always counter signaled the Austrian corporal. He never ever liked them. The first documentation in his notebooks was he called him like a wacko retard, basically, not in the based way either, of the cringe way. The thing about Schmidt is that he was a social striver ever since he was young. You see this in his early life. You see this entirely throughout his life. He is born in 1888, if I recall correctly, to his father was Johann Schmidt. Mother's name doesn't matter. He didn't like his mother either, by the way. It's always fascinating, with particularly German figures, to see if they're mama's boys or to see if they're like daddy's best boy, the top guy. Schopenhauer notoriously definitely not a mama's boy. Of course, Bismarck. Bismarck also not a mama's guy. Um, did not like his father. Did not like his father. His father was like his father was a lovable. His father was too wholesome chungus. He was a wholesome chungus like countryman. He wanted to shoot beer, drink beer, hang out with the boys on his country estate and his vibe. And well, Bismarck was a hustler. Yeah, he loved his father, but he found his father lacking in drive and ambition. With Schmidt, he is fine as a father. Detested his mother strongly. Found her overbearing, and she didn't like his girlfriend, his whore first wife. He got catfished, by the way. Carl Schmitt's sex life is like amazing. It literally is. He literally falls in love with the great grandmother of all girls. It's hilarious. I'll give you a little taste of that. But basically, so Schmidt, from his first idea, he always is siding with the aristocrats. So if you understand that generation of the that generation of Germans, or of our guys, Spengler, Junger, Ernst von Solomon, and of course Schmidt. These right wingers, they come from a much more of the theory cell background. The theory cells are much more closer to the heart of power, and much more coming from a position from above. So Schmidt, from right from the get go, he sides with von Schleicher. He is basically he fell for. This is actually true. He fell for the male girls meme. This is actually so true. Oh God. Okay. We're talking about sex life after I bring up after I explain his relationship with the painter. But so Schmidt sides with von Schleicher. Von Schleicher is the boomer. He from the I just want to grill position is, the I just want to grill position in Germany is you're a reactionary monarchist. You have this bullshit Anglo democracy shoved down your throat. It is foreign. It is cringe. Everyone's all these hipsters are celebrating their inner England, as as Spengler said in let's see, hold on, let me get the title correct. And Prussianism and socialism, basically talks about these liberals. They all have this inner England within them. They all are, they all wearing the same English style petticoats or cot coats. It's basically the same fashion. If you know, it's literally fashion, not even fashionable thought. Literally, it reflects in their attire. All German libtards dress like English libtards. It's an interesting observation from Spengler. It is a literal fashion. So in the I just want to grow position is the same thing. It is literally you're a reactionary monarchist, but the Holze. Okay, I'll go try to pronounce. Respect for Kaiser Wilhelm. I at least can get the Wilhelm part. Wilhelm. Wilhelm the First, who at least knew to obey Bismarck and his retard son, Wilhelm the Second. Holze. Okay. Holze. Actually, I'm just going to get the first four letters. Y'all can insert the rest. Oh, the Holzer Holland line. So you're a reactionary. Most centrists are reactionaries. They definitely do not libtard parliamentarism, but the libtards win basically. But they want these are still it's the nomos and the hegemony and the cultural is still fundamentally reactionary. So the centrists in these types are old Prussian like von aristocrats. Literally, Schmidt is a sensible centrist, basically. In July 19, what's it called? Oh God. So this is a beautiful moment of democracy because everyone, if you notice, libtards, normie centrists, every time they bring up Schmidt, you see this in James Lindsay. Every time he brings up Schmidt, the crown jurist of the Third Reich. That's of course, this beautiful term, this fake term. It becomes a bird. It becomes a chain around his neck. Schmidt barely gets any prestige from it. He gets 5 minutes of prestige, but then it most becomes a burden, even before he loses the war, and of course after he loses the war, it's literally like a the ring of gold that you always wanted, but it's so heavy and you rather drown. It becomes drowned. The thing you sought for, the thing you want for so long, ends up killing you. That kind of thing. You know, you want to. It's the monkey's paw. You wish for a crown of gold, and then you have the crown of gold literally melt on your skull and like literally like melt your brain. Like that was basically the title crown jurist. The social striver Schmidt wanted this title, this prestige for so long, but this title is honorific, ends up drowning his life basically, and killing him in certain senses. Um, I'll explain that later. So to answer the question, Schmidt does not like the painter to begin with. He views them as a street gang, basically. He operates his POV is always from the state, even as a very young man. In all his essays, when he was 21, 2 years my junior, 3 years my junior, he was always a Hobbesian. He was always a Hobbesian. He always viewed it from the status quo of the state. And so you see these street gangs basically fighting on the streets. He, from the radical centrist, is just saying use Article 45. I think it is 45. The Prussian, Hindenburg should just use Article 45. Be a commissural dictator. There's a difference between he gets super autistic with the definition of dictator versus a commissural dictator, like a commission, versus a sovereign dictatorship. A commissural dictator, you give this guy unlimited power to protect the status quo or protect the nomos, or protect the constitution. You guess it's from the English from a normal perspective, the constitution, quote unquote, versus a sovereign dictator. To give a libtard view, a commissionary dictatorship is Lincoln. Like if you give any libtard lawyer or historian will admit that Lincoln, he bent the rules. Yes, he had unconstitutional powers, but it was literally they use a state of emergency. They basically do say the state of emergency kind of thing. Yes, Lincoln bent the rules of the Constitution, but he only did that to preserve the republic or to preserve the rules. They're using a Schmittian argument or the classical. Lincoln is a dictator. I'm not using it even in a moral sense in this case. The dictator is given a supreme power to protect the the status quo or the normality. He was saving democracy, Chud. Yes, he was saving democracy, Chud. Right? That Karl Popper meme, the intolerance, the tolerance of intolerance, and the only way tolerance can be preserved is to defend itself from intolerance, right? Because you have to, if you want free speech, but you can't. If you want free speech, you cannot allow people who are against free speech, because in basic game theory terms, they'll outcompete you and then remove that right from society to begin with. So if you want to preserve that right, you have to have a shot caller or have a potentiality of, in case of emergency, bring out dictator, aka bring out a leader that actually does his job. So uh, under libtard terms, Lincoln is a great example. Lincoln or what's his name? Caesar. Pompey was another example. Pompey, again, to just the legal definition, the quote unquote the like steelman objective definition the Romans used is a dictator. Oh shit, Gauls are at our gates. They're coming in. We're getting invaded. Everything will be destroyed. I know we hate Rex is king in Latin. I know we hate tyrants, but my God, we need to have order. We need something. We need shit done quick. We need shit done fast, and then we can go back to normal, the normal of being a republic. So in case of emergency, bring out a king, basically, and that's a case of Lincoln. He is a commissional dictator. A commission is like a commissioning an artist or commissioning a landscape. You need something repaired. You commission someone. You don't hire them. He's not on retainer. You hire them to do a certain X job. Fight off the Gauls. You have power to fight off the Gauls, and that power of absolute power is taken away from you. Right? It's only for that case of state of emergency. So a commissionary dictatorship, as defined by Schmidt in Dictatorship, is basically your job is to use absolute power, absolute authority to protect the status quo. You cannot change the status quo. You cannot fundamentally change the status quo. You can't rewrite and make your own status quo. That is the difference between a sovereign dictatorship. A sovereign dictatorship can, to use normie American terms, can rewrite the Constitution. This is a case of Cromwell, for example, who was a sovereign dictatorship, and yeah, and yeah, you're not really supposed to know anything about the Lincoln administration besides having won the war. That's so true. It makes very uncomfortable pokes at a few heroes of the civil rights movement. Absolutely, penultimo. You definitely do see this, and the thing with the thing with there between Cromwell and the difference between Lincoln is that Lincoln, even in his full power, could not completely rewrite the Constitution. He could bend it, but a sovereign dictatorship, basically a sovereign king, can break the Constitution, throw it into the fires, and write a new one, and get away with it. And people won't throw a hissy fit about, oh, my documents, my founding principles, all the principle bullshit. No, yeah, a sovereign shot caller, sovereign dictator can fundamentally basically rip up the paper and write his own damn constitution, and people will accept it and treat it as if it's the law of gravity. Right? That's the difference between a sovereign dictatorship and a commissional dictatorship. It's you see this in of course, with the Nat Sox. Or with the Workers' Party, I had to, to keep the stream monetized. I have to use certain phrases. I had to optics cuck. I'm sorry for optics cucking. All right. The legality of the Nat Sox, of the Workers' Party, of the mid-century Germans is very interesting. But from my understanding, it was basically a constant state of emergency. They didn't get to actually rewriting the foundational articles. If I'm not too aware of this, German legal cells can correct me on this, but they actually they didn't completely actually say, the Weimar parliaments are now completely invalid. They didn't put them in, like, you get folders, you get those files in the folders, you put them in the recycling bin, and you empty them out. They just kind of pause the exe. They didn't actually even necessarily delete them and rewrite it from scratch. Um, from my understanding, it was almost a permanent state of emergency. So even on that terms, for all intents and purposes, for example, FDR's New Deal was him rewriting. He was a sovereign dictator, basically. FDR, with the power of the state, basically the total state, any sovereign state's rights or does any sovereignty individual states had, was completely crushed by FDR. FDR was a sovereign dictator, the closest thing America had to a sovereign dictator. Or Andrew Jackson, the classic line of Andrew Jackson, the parliament has made their decree, now let's see them enforce it. Right, that's also a sovereign dictatorship flex, basically. Yeah, the way the popular take on the Civil War is right to do what? It's a very sad reflection on what's expected to be the level of understanding of a very crucial conflict. So true, very true. Mystery Grove, in his podcast Conundrum Cluster, there's this great book he recommended, which I started reading or listening to an audiobook of. It's called The Disease of the Public Mind. Excuse me. It's a quote from James Buchanan reading. It's basically, you see a cultural Cold War. You see his libtards, right? And literally, John Brown literally is the white boy George Floyd, right? You see this insane terrorist who gets backing, literally funded by Brahmin, Puritan libtards, right? He gets backing to just randomly kill people, killing Catholics in the South randomly, like just murdering people in their homes, like the pre Civil War relationship between the South and like the North. It is horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying. The tension is insane. Oh my God, the whole bleeding Kansas thing in Missouri. Oh God, it's horrible. It's horrible. It literally was a Cold War. It was a Cold War between like you never know when a race war was going to happen. Basically, like you as a random bumfuck Southerner who done nothing wrong other than being in the South in the wrong place in the wrong time is like, man, am I gonna have a race war today? Am I gonna get killed by literally billionaire Yankees funding random schizo terrorists in the mountains? Oh, John Brown. It's a deeply it's a funny. I can make jokes about it now, obviously, but it's an absolutely horror show. It's horrifying. The Civil War is absolutely horrifying when you actually think in the context of this. Mm. And this is the idea of America as again breaking the laws of proper warfare. Then you see this with Schmidt. Schmidt, in terms of emergent evolution of thought, Schmidt actually correlates a lot with Moldbug in his theories. Because if you notice, um, the idea of partisan war. This is a great example of partisan warfare. It's not between two separate entities and polities exactly. It's a vague idea of ideals. Like, oh, the South is bad. South is the enemy, and because they have this ideological belief of slavery, because this abstract idea of sovereignty and bonds and all this, I am totally justified in going into a random house in the South and just murdering someone in the South just because they belong to a polity that is against my beliefs, which is it's insane. But that's the Anglo idea of war. It's because of principles and morality, that bullshit, right? Instead of just practical stuff like land and like materials. It's always a waste of time to argue about the Civil War online, but my favorite disruptor for lefties is pointing out that emancipation did not apply to slaves within northern states. Yeah, no, it was Lincoln was actually not a dumb man. He was a good politician. It was pure realpolitik. It was excellent. It was actually a brilliant war document. Actually, from a purely practical, you the idea of that was basically to give a casus belli to let the wholesome Chungus people in the South to uh, a right to mutiny, basically. It was the uh, fifth column, to activate a fifth column in the South, basically. I'm not going to go into too much details, but it was basically giving them a blank check to do certain actions at any means. Basically waving a welfare check across the border. Hey, if you kill as many Southerners as you want, and you will get uh, a blank check. Basically, it was a blank check for certain individuals in the South, basically, to do certain actions. Um, Yeah, it took to what 1867 for the North to free all their slaves. Makes lefty sense. Yes, and also and this is another idea of like polity and nomos and all these things with Schmittians. I believe it took even longer for native reservations to outlaw slavery because native reservations have their own intrinsic like inner politic or inner politic spheres. So I think it took even longer from 1867 maybe 1880. I remember hearing or reading it, but basically native tribes had slavery until like the 1880s or something ridiculous like that. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But if I remember correctly, there were pockets of Native American tribes that still kept slavery until like the 1890s or something ridiculous like that. Which actually makes sense because like it was it was the closest thing to the Americans had to practical politics in terms of they were practicing like what's it called, the Nemet system? Nemet, not Nemet. It's the practical version of multiculturalism that the Ottoman Turks did, whereas each group has their own laws and each group has their own right of self-selection of practicing freedom of association. Jews in the Ottoman Empire could not have Muslims in their bars and vice versa. But obviously, the sovereign, he is the side who decides on the exception. Obviously, a Ottoman Turk, you have to let Ottoman Turks sleep in your Jewish bar, and you have to let Ottoman Turks eat in your Muslim restaurant or your Christian restaurant. They're allowed anywhere. The freedom of exception is made an exception. Freedom of association, yeah, you're right to say no to any group you want, and self group selection as long as you want, as long as you give freedom to the people of the operating layer. Yes, no mention of the Indian nation, Oklahoma being very yes, the foundational Oklahoman Confederates, foundational Indian, the Southern Indians, are strongest soldiers of the South, sons of the South, wholesome Chungus across multiculturalism there. Yes, the Indian nations in Oklahoma were notoriously pro-Confederate, and also of course my people, the foundational Croatian Americans, fighting on the Confederate side. Um, Yeah, so that's an example of a commissionary dictatorship. Is Lingen, and if under the normie framework, is you give someone a complete power in a state of emergency to get rid of the emergency, and things revert back to normal. They're allowed to be free from the rules, but they cannot break the rules, as in break it permanently for everyone else, and they cannot rewrite the rules. They can only be outside the bubble of the rules, fix the situation, and once the situation is solved, they go back within the bubble. They cannot burst the bubble permanently. While a sovereign dictatorship, Augustus, Oliver Cromwell, Stalin, sovereign dictatorships can make their own constitutions, basically. That's the difference between a sovereign dictatorship and a commissionary dictatorship. And so back to Schmidt and his relationship with Hitler. Oh fuck, I said his name. That's already an hour and a half in. And his relationship to the Austrian corporal is that basically he always viewed him as a street thug, um, all the way up until he got elected or as chancellor. And the thing is, it's a beautiful moment where people give him shit for being anti-democracy. It's a beautiful Shakespearean tragedy. Like, I would love to see a play of Schmidt's life, because the ironies, right? So Schmidt, the sensible centrist, wants to steal the election. He wants to defeat democracy, right? Evil anti-democracy chud wants to activate Article 45. Once Article 45 is activated, von Schleicher can basically say, hey, you're street gangs, and basically just purge society of the communists and the German workers, and just have the I just want to grow. It's basically Franco. If you remember, Franco was basically a centrist. Look how he treated anyone to his right, right? Franco was basically a centrist. Basically, just he wanted to do what Franco did. Basically, all radicals. It's just nothing but boomers grilling the German sausage forever. Hindenburg and Schleicher, they have full power to state. They say fuck off to the libtards. They get rid of the German. They get rid of the communists. They get rid of the Nat socks, and it's just normie centrism. Military enforced grilling, basically. I just want to grill centrism, basically. In this case, a Prussian centrism is you let these like Giga Chat aristocrat boomers grill, reactionary boomers grill. But of course, he in Parliament they were outvoted, and this is the kicker, by the way. The so in I believe Goering was actually in Parliament. He was overseeing Parliament. This might be apocryphal. Bear with me. But so imagine Hermann Goering shaking hands with communists, literally across the aisle. Right? They both the beautiful parties seeing across each other. The sensitive young German men reaching across the aisle to communists within the parliament to block the sensible centrists from blocking the Austrian corporal's election. Communists literally shook hands with sensitive young men to allow the Austrian corporal to take power. Basically, it's from a normie perspective. It's a beautiful irony of democracy and everything like this. It's a delicious irony. It's a beautiful irony. It's a Shakespearean irony. It's irony and comedy. It's everything all at once. It's a beautiful thing to envision inside your brain, right? So sensible centrist Schmidt, wants von Schleicher. Von Schleicher is the head of the military. He's imagine German Franco. And wants to use the military to say no to the retards of Hindenburg. Not Hindenburg. It wasn't Hindenburg at the time. It was some other guy. Wants von Papen, I believe. Wants to have full power to state. No, again, but point is, Prussian boomer wants to activate Article 45, get full powers of state, prevent the election of the Austrian painter, but is outvoted in parliament by a coalition of sensitive young German men, communists. They block the vote. Teaming up. The Red and Brown Alliance teams up against evil reactionary centrism, and then the Austrian corporal gains power. The communists literally help with this, by the way. It's just chef's kiss. Mwah, right? It's beautiful. It's extremely hilarious. So Austrian corporal comes in power. The sensitive young man comes into power, and so Schmidt is like, "Oh shit, fuck me," right? He's like, "Shit, shit, shit, shit." Because remember, Schmidt loves his career. He loves prestige. He is extremely a hustler. He's a social striver. His entire life. If you, his two mentors, Hugo Genov, and Francis von I know it's not Cracker, but I'm just gonna say Cracker. All his teachers in law school and his education always say the same thing about Schmidt. Schmidt is sharp as a whip. He's a deeply intelligent man. He has a hunger. He would make a great academic. Franz von Cracker. It's Cakr. I think his literal name is Crakr. That's his last name. His university professor said about him. He's like, listen, you'll make a great academic. You will make a great be at university. But Schmidt didn't want to be an academic. He didn't want to be. He wanted fame. He wanted glory. He wanted to matter. Schmidt wanted to matter, and he was always a social striver. And he was always jealous of people in their castles. He wanted to live in luxury. He wanted to be an aristocrat. He would hang out with Hugh Zhinoff, his mentor in being a lawyer and being a jurist. Actually, hold on, I'll show you a picture of his mentors. He's very interesting. He's basically the Falstaff to his Hal, basically. It's a very interesting character. I wish I knew more about. Hold on, if I could find the screenshot of him. Hold on, do. Here, let me see if I can talk and do this at the same time. His mentor, Hugo Zhinov, was basically a drunk, you're basically a Falstaff figure, sharp as a whip, an excellent jurist, but in his old age, he basically become like Goodwill Hunting Robin Williams, and like, he would make Schmidt drink with him until like 3 a.m. and laugh, and just he was his patron, right? It was a very bizarre relationship they had with each other. Let's see. Is this the one? Hold on. Is this the screenshot? Hold on. Nope. Sorry, I'm looking through screenshots right now. Nope. Hold on. One second, y'all. Motherfucker. Here it is. Thank you. Okay. Here it is. Hold on. Let me get this on screen. Let's get this on screen. Present. Share screen. Hold on. Windows. Here it is. Here is Schmidt's mentor, or one of his two mentors. This is Hugo. Hold on, let's get the cursor here. Hugo Zhinov. This is his mentor. He owns his career to this man, and if he's basically his father figure, his theory self father figure. Deeply intelligent man, sharp as a whip, a true aristocrat of the soul in every means, and also a tasteful Dionysian. Tasteful Dionysian. Let's gonna say that he was known as a very, very interesting man. Schmidt used to complain about him all the time because he would force him to drink with him and just hear him boomerang to the ends of the night, basically. But he, of course, Zhenov would let him stay in his castles and stay with him overnight. And of course, Zhenov actually he did the classic "Dad, I told you, son," to get not be with that skank, because Schmidt got catfished by a harlot from Croatia. My people, a whore from my people, literally scammed Schmidt into like basically damning his soul under Catholic terms. And so he was so obsessed with being an aristocrat. Schmidt would love. He wanted to be an aristocrat so bad, so bad. He met this girl. He thought she was a Spanish dancer. He went to clubs. He went to a club and he met this quote unquote Spanish dancer who was a daughter of a Croatian aristocrat. And she had this idea of being like an e-girl. She was moody. She was emo, right? She was basically an e-girl. She was a 1920s e-girl or 19. Let's see. He met her when he was 20. Let's see. He's born 1880, like 1908, 1910. Well, this is pre-World War One, pre-World War One, I think so. So he meets this woman, Kasha, I think her name is, and then he gets catfished by her. Yet again, he loves it. She's a Spanish dancer, and it's sexual. He's a horn dog. Schmidt is horny. He's a very horny dude. Schmidt is. You don't get that from his writing at all. It's very technical. It's very clean cut. It's very professional, right? It's very, 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 very professional, right? But Schmidt, the man, was a mess. Schmidt was a sensitive young man through and through, very much a sensitive young man. And so Hugo Amzhinov, he notifies him. He says, "Hey, listen, don't get involved with this Tingle Tangle." And Tingle Tangle was a boomer a boomer neologism, basically, which meant don't go with those girls who dance at clubs or these trendy girls. Yeah, basically, it's a German slang. It's like a flapper in the 1920s sense of the F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, she wasn't as bad as Zelda. Zelda had Anglo mental illness. This was his classic, Eastern Bloc whoredom, basically. So, scamming since young men of their wealth and their possessions. Excuse me. So Schmidt meets this girl in a in a literally dancing club, a Spanish club, falls in love with her, gets so possessed by her, and is so horny, ridiculously horny for this woman, and he wants to get married. I know this was before World War One. He was terrified of death. Yes, he says this is why he accelerated the wedding. One of his friends died. A close childhood friend dies in the war. Dies from a grenade shrapnel, if I recall correctly, to the skull. He mentions this in his diary. And he was very anti-war, by the way, in World War One. That's another interesting thing about Schmidt is that he is deeply, deeply anti-war, and there's this beautiful moment of divine irony. Um, I'll see if I'll present it here, but there's a beautiful moment of divine irony. One of his two mentors. Remember, he has two mentors: Franz von. I'm just gonna keep on saying Cracker, Franz von Cracker, and Hugo Amginov. And so Hugo Amginov is his jurist professor. He's the one who helps him with his being a professor. And Franz von Cracker is his. Horrors are so based, honestly. I'm not going to, no comment on this. This is I denounce unless it's tasteful. Listen, courtesans are tasteful. Horrors are not tasteful. That's all I'm going to say about that. Napoleon lost his virginity to a courtesan. All right. Um. Anyway, let me find this pic. Let me find this screenshot I have of. Hold on. Do. Let's see. There's this wonderful moment where he talks about. Oh, come on. I didn't write it down. God damn it. Okay. There's this wonderful moment where he's talking with his mentor in World War One. And his and his boomer mentor is very, very, very pro World War One. He is very much. He's like, hey, his mentor even says this. Hey, listen, the legality of this situation doesn't even matter. Like discussing the causes of World War One, the legality of this doesn't matter. Like, listen, this is a great gamble. We could win so much from this war, this conflict. This is what his mentor says. And Schmidt is just blackpilling. He's like, this is stupid. This is a waste of life. This is not the, Machiavellian Gitchad. Here it is. Here's the quote. I'll just read it to you, actually. Let's see. Oh my God. Was this it? God damn it. No. Okay, so in Carl Schmidt, the Soldier, this is a quote from the biography. I sorry, there's no screenshot of this. This is a real book. Sadly, chaps, these are a real book. It's not an EPUB, so I can't show it to you. I'll just go read the whole page. On February 26th, February 1915, Schmidt arrived in Munich and received his uniform. He was conscripted in the war, not on the front lines, though. He was supposed to be in the front lines, but his university professor, von, let's see, hold on, Calker, Calker. Calker. So it's going to be Cracker or Calker. Take your pick. Take your poison with my pronunciation. And so Franz Calker, he is a university professor. He pulls strings to keep him off the front line and puts him in a managerial job, right? Because he knows the poor boy's going to get killed. It's a waste of talent. It's from a very early age. Schmidt is a deeply, deeply intelligent young man, and he's his talents and his genius is recognized by these two old men, Hugo Amginov and Franz von Calker. So let me finish. Schmidt arrived in Munich and received his uniform. From the very beginning, military service appeared to him as slavery, a spooky nightmare, quote unquote. This is quotes from his journal. But already on the 2nd of March, Carrie was the Croatian whore who scammed him, actually. Literally stole furniture from his house and sold it. Carrie, the Croatian whore, pretending to be an aristocrat. Literally pretending to be a classy e-girl. She literally is the mother of all e-girls. Oh my God, so much stories. So visited him for 3 days on her way to Vienna. Quote, life in the barracks, the marching and the drill, the stench of the plebs. Nevertheless remained terrible to Schmidt. it was, quote, hell. Carl experienced the surface as coercion, the barracks as a prison. He was disgusted by the military jargon. On March 11th, he wrote, "How will the World War end? Germany is becoming the country of justice, of the destruction of the individual. Germany realizes precisely what I postulated as the ideal state in my book on the state." So this is the beautiful dark irony. Like he's a state, so he's a base state maximizer. But as soon as he gets put in a position that he doesn't like, he's like, "Oh, but my individuality, bro." This is him. Like it's the classic, it's the liberal irony, I guess. The anti-individualism of Schmidt's early work now appeared to be a negative utopia, and he reinterpreted it in categories in religious terms. Quote, "The God of law was abruptly juxtaposed to the God of love, and the old distinction between law and justice thus connected to the distinction between state and church. Thus, Schmidt moved away from his earlier preference for state because he experienced the God of this world, the law," unquote, in terms of the destruction of the individual. Quote, "Through the agency of von Kalker on March 23rd, Schmidt was moved to the office of a deputy general command, German word I cannot pronounce. He was now allowed to leave the barracks and slept in his own apartment in German place I cannot pronounce. His basic military service did not last even a month. This boy could not. This man was a theory cell through and through. This man was a NEET. He could not. He did not even last a month in the military, and he thought it was a living hell. As mentioned before, Schmidt could theoretically have attended Hellingraf's lectures on Holderlin, which he gave in Munich at the time. These lectures discussed the tragic genius of the youth movement, whose members went to war with Holderlin in their knapsacks. Knapsacks was like a military version of the backpack, if I recall correctly. Schmidt did not credit the war of any heroic meaning. This is the opposite of Junger. Opposite of Junger. His relationship with Junger is also deeply, deeply interesting. This biography, if you read this in compare it to Junger's biography, his his Paris diaries. Junger's Paris diaries mixed with this biography of Schmidt. These two men's relationship is so fascinating. It's really, really interesting because Schmidt likes Junger a lot, but there's still an idea of envy and resentment between Schmidt onto Junger. Junger is a born aristocrat. He is a hero. It's kind of like relationship of to use in American terms, Fitzgerald's jealousy of Hemingway. Hemingway actually got to fight in the war. He got to see action. Fitzgerald did not get to see action. Hemingway's a hyper masculine, Giga Chad, good with women. Fitzgerald's horrible with women. So to use an American comparison to give that idea, Schmidt is deeply jealous of Junger to a certain degree, loves Junger, and but Junger is the Giga Chad. He is the Giga Chad relationship. Well, Junger is the Chud. He is the Chud in the corner. Junger is the Chad in the center of all events, and this jealousy is expanded after the war, because Junger, of course, basically says, "I told you so." He tells Schmidt, "You backed the wrong horse, dude." I don't get shit. You get shit. The reason why you get shit, dude, is because you decided to become a member of the party. I at least dodged that bullet. Well, you didn't. Junger said that very politely, but he basically did say, "I told you so" to Schmidt, and Schmidt always felt that donkey kick to the teeth, basically, of Junger. Basically, this Giga Chad aristocrat who basically gets to be a protagonist. He gets to live the protagonist lifestyle. He gets to wave his finger at me because I backed the wrong horse, because I dare try to elevate my life. So yeah, hold on, let me finish this. Let's see. He sharply rebuffed the service for the state that his earlier monograph appeared to have praised. He considered his time to be of these exceptional, quote, times of immediacy, in which the individual is suspended from his or her duty of service. His diary contains only entries expressing his yearning for peace and none expressing a hope for victory. This is another quote, direct quote from Schmidt. Read in French newspapers again. Feeling a strange kind of joy when the enemy is victorious. Expect the worst, runs one of his notes. So he's so black-pilled. He's so angry that he's forced to live this way. He's experiencing death, capital D death. He's experiencing the political in the Schmittian terms. He's experiencing real politics for the first time, and he hates it. At this point, he just wants the French to win out of sheer spite. Like, he's going through this edgy teenage phase during World War One. This is not the Schmidt you and I know. He's not the meme of the Schmidt that you and I know. This is like edgy. This is like listening to Linkin Park, cutting his fingernails and cutting it like a across the line, whatever how you cut yourself properly. This is edgy emo Schmidt here. He wrote he would like to write a satire. The day of the last judgment dawns. The Prussians arrange it. Now, this is the classic. If you remember classic Germany, Prussians, Bavarians, Saxons, that kind of thing. They view each other as actually distinct entities, right? And Schmidt obviously is jealous of the Prussian Gejets. During the World War, Schmidt fundamentally rejected the idea of service to the state because he considered the war unjust. In one passage of his diary, he's even critical of von Kalker, his mentor, packed with this world. Quote, in the course of a day, I remember how often von Kalker, after a good lunch, explained to me with a twinkle in his eye, it is war and minor illegalities do not matter right now. He has become unfaithful to himself. He acquires the meanness and hypocrisy of this world, unquote. And this quote is this is what we call foreshadowing. This piece of dialogue would be considered heavy-fisted once we how know Schmidt's story ends. Obviously, hold on, I'm just gonna take a picture of my phone. Like, this has to be on screen. Hold on, do. It's a beautiful irony. It is a delightful irony to see Schmidt this way, because obviously he's talking shit about Calker by him being a Machiavellian opportunist, basically, for the war. But of course, Schmidt will literally find himself in the exact same situation he becomes the very thing he detested in his mentor. Yeah, this line is beautiful. He has become unfaithful to himself. He acquires the meanness and hypocrisy of this world. Just chef's kiss in terms of irony. Schmidt did not want to become part of this because he considered the war unjust. He also saw his activities in the general command in a negative light. After a trip to Dachau, he wrote, I was mad with anger about the Prussians, about militarism. I felt like committing the most ostentatious insubordinations. How ghastly for an individual to be sitting in such a prison, unquote. So, yes, so Schmidt is basically a flower child. He is a flower child, basically, during the Vietnam War. War is bad, man. I think I love Schmidt. I'm not being critical of Schmidt. I adore Schmidt. Schmidt's a genius. I love him. I generally do adore the man, right? But it's just interesting to see this side of Schmidt. Not a million years would I expect this rhetoric out of Schmidt. And it's understandable. I understand him. He's literally younger than me, and I think in his time of his life. And childhood friends are literally getting their brains blown out at this time. So I understand this completely. I understand the sentiment completely. But it's Shakespearean irony through and through. Let me see what Penultimo says. I paid good money to see Gabe's first day at his new job. There could be a betting how long it would take for an obscure quote as mentioned. Listen, I'm the master of optics. I am master of the double negativity of John Keats. I can shape rotate to the polar opposite ideals. I'm Spencer Grunhauer. I learned my ways to hide my power level in a masterful way that Spencer Grunhauer learned to hide his power level. I'm very good at hiding my power level in Spencer-Howerian ways. So yes, I have nothing to worry about in terms of that. I am a chameleon. I am, but in a cringe way, but in a very Machiavellian based way. Yeah. So I'll just continue with my Schmidt ramble. So Schmidt, I say, so Schmidt at this time, basically for all intents and purposes, is a flower child. Privately, he's literally a flower child hippie in his heart of hearts. He just wants to be with his e-girl, go to parties, have sex, and get married. Right? And oh god, and so he makes his girl live with his parents during the time, and he just hates his sister. His sister knows he's a skank. His mother can tell she's a skank. Right? This is the based version of Longhouse. One good thing about having women in your family is the skank detection, because you're too horny, you can't see through your horniness, but they can. It's the intrasexual female competition. So he's like, man, I hate my mom so much. She's getting into fights with my girl every day. My sister hates her too. Right? I rant to my father, and all this he managed to begrudgingly get his father's support for the marriage, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Every single person with authority who has concern for Schmidt says not to marry this skank. She is a skank, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? He's just like, no, she's an aristocrat, mom. You don't understand. She's an aristocratic e-girl, all right? She's a Spanish dancer, bro. She's totally an aristocrat of the soul, man. Like she's I'm totally climbing the social hierarchy ladder. Yeah, again, in his excuse to get the divorce, because he wants to divorce her, obviously after um, I love to see you wrangling normie water cooler talk. No, I wouldn't be wrangling. I'll be weaving. I'll be dominating. I'll be moving to Overton window. I'll be mentioning Spangler. They'll bring up sports and be like, Spangler talked about sports as an organic, the difference between crystallized civilization and that of organic culture. And I would impose my will. Okay, you up for the season's Fanati League? Oh yeah, fantasy sports, right? It's like gambling. It's like hyperstition. Yeah, it's like hyperstition. You pick players and you kind of predict how they will do. It's like micro poly market or something like that. But anyway, back to Schmidt. His relationship with Carrie. I forget. I just said her name. I can't remember her name. Right, is hilarious. So Hugo Almaginov, his version of Doc Brown, it literally is Schmidt's Marty McFly. Hugo Almaginov is his Doc Brown is way older man who's best friends with this young kid who makes him attend every party with him and who makes him drink with him to the end of the night as literally his full staff. Uh, Spangler talked about this. Is why I know I would win that betting table. You would. You would. I would commit betting fraud to ensure you would win that, and also so like an excuse to force to scare hoes by forcing them to hear the word Spangler. I want to hear. I want to hear the reactions of their moistures to the word Spangler. Spang. You want to get spanged. That kind of thing. So Schmidt. Let me get back to Schmidt. So Schmidt meets this girl. Where was I? Yeah. So Hugo Almaginov, even he's like, hey, listen, I know these kind of women. Schmidt, for the love of God, call off the marriage, call off the what's it, fiance? What's it called? When you're not married, but you're like pre-ordering a wedding, pre-ordering the marriage. Yeah, it's not fiance ship. You become a fiance, but there's a term for that period of time where you pre-ordered the wedding and pre-ordered the marriage. Um, there's a word for that time. I forget the word, but so yeah, so he's pre-ordered to he call so Hugo tells him engagement. Thank you, Mr. Blair. Strongest soldier again. Blair coming again. Yeah, so Hugo begs Schmidt to cancel his pre-order of the marriage, and but Schmidt is just too damn horny. It is clear as day. It is sexual. Even in his diaries, it's like 90%. He's just turned on by this woman's aura, basically. Um, and so they get married, and of course she can't cook. She actually can't cook, by the way. She can't cook. She doesn't clean. Betrothal, yes, classy betrothal, engagement or betrothal. Thank you, Finkel. So she's an e-girl. She really is an e-girl. She's a zoomer. And the thing about the World War One generation is when you read their biographies, they're zoomers. I relate to it, it's so bizarre. I relate to the silent generation or to the lost generation or to the World War One the right before World War One and after World War One are so relatable. Carl Schmidt is a zoomer. He is a spiritual zoomer, so much so. Everyone is to a certain degree. They're immensely relatable. That's why I love World War One biographies. They're way relatable. I could give a fuck about a World War Two generations people. They come as sanctimonious and preachy. I don't like Anglos. That's why I've been accused of being anti, a third world has been at times. I can't stand the Americans, at least time for the most part. Other than obviously the ones I like, obviously, Kaczynski, uh, um, what's his name, Yaki, obviously the aristocrats of the soul. Um, but the German World War One people I just adore them. I love them so much in their personalities of this time. Schmidt is a total zoomer, so he falls in love. He falls in love with this whore, literally a whore, literally a whore. And the thing is, so the issue is he's trying to become a jurist. He's trying to become I love just seeing nerds get people to fuck up. So far, she's not being the based allegations with his long con. She ruined. He may be in hell. She literally, he might. Schmidt might be in hell to this very day. Actually, I just love seeing nerds get blown the fuck out. It's so true. It's so true. So he's middle of becoming a lawyer. He's trying to run a newspaper. He's in a managerial job. He's climbing up the ladder, and he has to deal with her getting caught stealing jeans. It's either jeans or pants. It's right out of Schopenhauer's essay on women. Like she's literally stealing things out from stores, and he has to pull strings from Hugo, right? His mentor, who's of course shaking his head, saying, "I told you, son. Like she's a whore, right? She's a skank. You're getting scammed." Right. So he's trying to become a lawyer, and of course he has to deal. Like he has to speak lawyernese. He has to help her get out of the charges, to get the charges dropped on her for thievery because she's stealing pants from stores, and it's hilarious. It's mind-bogglingly funny because you have the idea of Schmidt, the theory cell version of Schmidt, the dissident DR Schmidt based Stone Cold Schmidt, and then you have wholesome, sensitive young man gets entrapped by an e-whore, and he's just, my God, like. I'm trying to become a lawyer, bitch. You don't even cook. You don't even cook. You're stealing pants from stores. I'm trying to become a lawyer. What the fuck are you doing? Like it's hilarious. Is so Schmidt did nothing wrong. I'm not even saying this ironically. Even from a normie standpoint, every time I see Schmidt and I see him betrayed negatively or being morally sanctimonious about him, even from a normie framework, you can get fucked. Schmidt was a sensitive young man, an entirely innocent human being. The only thing wrong, quote unquote, if depending on your principles, was that he was a hustler and a Machiavellian and a social striver, right? He was objectively seeking more status. He would believe the sky is green if that meant him getting him pussy and getting him accolades. But yeah, so it's his relationship with the girl is hilarious. It's beautiful. So he finally gets a divorce after I forget how many years. It's less than 10 years. It's less than 10. Uh, Um, so he finally gets a divorce. Here's the thing: he gets a secular divorce, a secular divorce. Remember, this is Tradcaths here. This is back when Catholicism actually meant something. This is before Vatican II, when Vatican II basically retcons Catholicism. So he's like, "Fuck, I have to get it annulled via the Catholic Church." And we'll discuss his relationship with the Catholicism a little later, but Schmitz argues that since it's via documents, he finally gets documents. It finally is revealed she isn't a daughter of a Croatian aristocrat. She's just some dumbo, like bumfuck, nowhere, Croatian e-girl whore who tricked him via her spicy Spanish dancing. And so he tries to make an argument for the Catholic Church. He's like, okay, how do I get, like, for Tradcath, wholesome Chungus moral reasons? How do I get rid of this marriage? So he tries to say, oh, I married her because she was an aristocrat. Since she's not an aristocrat, I got married on false pretenses. So he basically admits to, hey, I'm a social striver. I only married this woman because I wanted social status. Please, Mr. Pope, can I please get my marriage annulled? And and the church denies him. He tries to get his church annulled or canceled via the Catholic version of divorce like 2 or 3 times, and twice or three each time the Catholic Church is like, dude, that's your best argument, is that you're a social striver and you just wanted to know what it's like to fuck an aristocrat girl, if a girl higher class than you, like it's Aladdin fantasy. Like that's your best argument under God, under the Catholic faith of is the sanctity of marriage, is that you debased your self via wanting to fucking aristocrat. Like that was his best argument, was like, hey, she lied, because he's thinking like a lawyer, because legally, yeah, yes, I was marrying her under the pretense of her she was an aristocrat, but that was false pretenses. He shows this is paperwork. She literally lied about her background heritage. And so under secular reasoning, that's enough to get a divorce, but under religious reasoning, that's not enough to get a divorce. So but he still went with it anyway. And his love life is spectacular. It's hilarious. His friend, his mentor, his Doc Brown, Hugo Amzinov, mentions he later in life during the 70s. It's very heartwarming to hear talk about this. Schmidt mentions, my mentor Hugo Amzinov. He once said, "I never knew a man whose writing was so clear, so precise, and so organized, whose life was so precisely the opposite in the exact same degree. You're one of the most clearest writers I've ever known, and your life is one of the most messiest I've ever seen. Right? So in direct proportion to his strict, clear writing, his in direct proportion to that, his life is absolute mess. Personal life, absolute train wreck. Just drama, like peak himbo drama. And so in his love life would be very interesting. Never. I noticed this. He likes foreign women. Actually, he never has relationships with a German woman. He has a Croat whore, Kasha, and he finally, but he comes. So they share an apartment, and he's spending so much money. Like he's spending so much money on like on like restaurants because he in a biography. I was in tears. I was laughing. Oh, because Kasha can't cook. Did not know how to cook. She was an e-girl. She really was an e-girl. She was an e-girl. Mm. Um, so because she couldn't cook, and so they're constantly going through restaurants, and he's trying to show her the high life and all these things. And finally, when he comes back to the apartment, all the furniture is gone. This bitch literally stole his furniture and sold it for cash, and then like literally dined and dashed out of town. Basically, it's hilarious. It's really is hilarious. Mm. So, and the second woman he would have a relationship with is actually an Irish woman, an Irish woman. Um, and who he wrote all her papers, by the way. Or let me rephrase: he wrote like all the papers that actually got her job and her degree and her professorship. Um, he fell in. Her name was Catherine. Kate, Cat, Key. It starts with a K. The thing is, with paper books, you can't control F. I have a picture of her. She looks relatively frumpy. Oh, here's actually a very good picture of Schmidt. And his relationship with Catholicism, he's very much uh I'm not gonna say his real faith or not. I don't think even Schmidt himself knew half the time what his real beliefs or in terms of religion. He liked Catholicism as like a as an operating system. Yet again, his emergent belief structure, his way of thinking is very Moldbugian. He's very much a proto Moldbug in his reasoning. In terms of he likes mechanics, he likes how things tick. But one actual Catholic or he was writing for a Catholic journal one time, and his one of his editors there is like, if I ever need someone to justify the Spanish Inquisition, obviously I would, as the strongest faithless inquisitor, I would choose you, or something along those lines. Basically, Schmidt was into Catholicism for the idea and structure of the Inquisition, not for the beliefs behind the Inquisition. Which is basically, he's in it for the mechanics. He's not in it for the story, to use video game terms, or something along those lines. So where was I? Oh yeah, so her name was she was an Irish woman, and also to be clear, Croatians. If you look at Charles Murray's the human achievements, by the way, Croatians have done more for Western civilization than the entirety of the potato people. They have more innovations and more inventions come from Croatia than the entirety of Ireland, by the way. So, just to let all the Celt slaves in the chat know that you're objectively inferior to my people. But anyway, so he then has an affair. Actually, no, I think he was still married. He was still married to Kasha, and when he was having an affair with an Irish woman. Also, he was reading Otto Weiniger, Sex and Character, at this time. He develops this weird misogyny. He even calls it misogyny, his hatred of women. It's like this white knight mythology, like his relationship. Oh, this woman is on his back, and it is the true self's burden. It is the sensitive young man's burden to carry a woman on his back, despite her being a harlot and a whore. It is a proper Catholic thing to do, to let your girl be a whore and to be a faithless gypsy. Like he wrote a little short story, like a little parody or like a comedy, literally called, I believe, The Faithless Gypsy, where a man, uh, Schmidt thanked her with a typescript of The Faithful Gypsy, which is basically women be hoes, basically, to put it mildly. Oh god, there's a picture of this woman with her name, but her name is Kay something. She's an Irish woman who is a student. She was a either for law or historian or German culture, and so Schmidt pulls strings for her because she's a foreigner, and so a lot of the based trad. This is how far Germany has declined. There was multiple people concerned with letting an Irish woman have a career in Germany because they thought it was an existential threat to the legal profession. That's how much because they're like because they also saw them as an extension of the Anglos of the English. And of course, so Schmidt pulled strings, and it had either Hugo, his pull strings on his behalf again to keep her from getting booted from the program, and to keep let her stay in Germany to theory sell. Oh, Irish people actually hate the English, and she's completely fluent in German and all these things. So Schmidt pulls strings for her to get a career. And not only that, basically writes her papers for her. Schmidt literally does the whole nerd trying to get pussy thing. It writes her papers for her to get her passed, basically. And he does love her actually. And there's a relationship. It's an awkward thing. He wants to marry her, but then he meets a Serbian woman, Dushka, Duska, I believe, Dushka, and he meets this girl who's half his age. She's 19, 20. He's tastefully 40 or something along those lines, 40, 30. This was in. Okay. Oh, here's interesting here. Okay. Oh, sorry. I found an interesting quote I have, but I can't for the life of me, I cannot find the picture of this woman. And oh my gosh, she's going to drive me crazy. She's yes, and she ended up in Australia. Ah, here she is, bitch. There we are. Here we are. Hold on. Hold on. Oh fuck! I lost it. I lost it. Here she is, Kathleen. Kathleen Murray. There is, after all, only one woman for me. Kathleen. Carl Schmidt about Kathleen Murray in his diary. So yeah, so she meets this woman, Kathleen Murray, born in 1895. Younger woman. Sorry, an Irish citizen in Sydney. Her father was a journalist. In 1911, she left school and studied modern languages at the University of Sydney. In December 1914, she was awarded a Bachelor of Arts. Yet again, he likes art hoes. Schmidt likes art hoe women. Um, that seems to be his type for the most part. So he meets this Irish woman and falls in love with her. And and the love she has this weird thing. You know how in Titanic, the main woman, she falls in love with DiCaprio. She falls in love with a one night stand. She has children, and literally has an entire life. He's just like me for real, for real. So true. So he falls in love with this Kathleen Murray woman, and the thing is, he will never get over her. Actually, and it goes both ways. Actually, after war, we have a letter from her in 1950 or 1960. She writes to the University of Bonn, Bonn, I believe. And she's like, hey, there's this man named Carl Schmidt. He used to teach there. Do you have his address? And so this is decades. This is after World War II. This is after World War II. And this is after, she's been indoctrinated to propaganda. So this woman sees through all the propaganda and all these things and still writes to him decades later, saying, basically the door's always open, dude. If you want to hit it off old granny style, you can. It's actually very, very sweet. And she's actually not an e-girl social striver. She didn't seem to use them just to advance her career. There actually seemed to be some genuine sense of love between Schmidt and Kathleen. And Schmidt would, in his diaries, almost never refer to Kathleen again. And he actually had to choose between Dushka, the actual Serb. If I remember correctly, she was ethnically Serb. Yet again, Balkan. He likes Balkan bitches, actually, which is actually very odd. It's a weird quirk of his. I noticed with him is that yet again, if you notice, all these women, Croatian, Irish woman, and then the Serb, all these women are not German. Um, Anywhere near, not even like I guess. Oh, two of them are Catholic countries, Croatia and Ireland. Well, one, his faith is his connection to his faith is a bit wonky. How much he cares, capital C cares about his faith is always up for discussion. He always comes. he's a bit of a prodigal son, always returning, always leaving, always returning to the faith. His relationship to Catholicism is very, very back and forth. You see this multiple times. Here's the spicy details. Uh, After a disappointing affair, oh yes. So this is a fourth woman. He has affairs with another woman. He had another affair, another tasteful affair, and a tasteful mistress. After a disappointing affair with the physician Carola or Lolo Sawyer. I think she was also Spanish. I don't know. Her last name was Sauer. The ethno bros can determine what last name is that. The faithful gypsy soon ruefully remembered his relationship with Murray and was embarrassed about his unfaithfulness. Oh yeah, so he was with Kathleen Murray. He actually, generally capital L, loved her, but he had a tasteful affair with this physician woman named Carola. Carola? It's Carol, but with an L-A at the end of it. He continues to see himself as a faithful gypsy, a Don Quixote, an Othello, or a Bluebeard. Quote, there's after all, the quote I said earlier, he knelt down, full of longing, and he wanted to travel to Marburg, the place of remembrance, or to Australia. Later, he would make inquiries about the requirements for a departure to Australia in 1923. He seriously considered even marrying Kathleen, even after he had met his future wife, Duska Tutorvik. Vic. He again and again yearningly remembered Kay. Kay is a nickname for Kathleen. As late as August 1923, an Australian priest visited Schmidt as Kathleen's quote-unquote messenger. By then, however, Carl had made a decision in favor of Dushka. There must have been a deep attachment between Schmidt and Murray on both sides. In December 1938, she met Schmidt again in Berlin and afterwards wrote a love letter to him. After Dushka's death, she again sought contact with him. We have letters and postcards that refers to memories and vows. Murray asked for a meeting in Germany or Australia as late as December 20th, 1960. 1960, 15 years at the end of World War II, and his woman still lusting for that Schmittian D, right? For the state of his exception. Quote, do you want to see me again in this life, Carl? If you reply to this letter, does not mention anything about it. I shall see from this point that my visit would not give you any pleasure, and I shall accept that. Apparently, Schmidt did not answer this letter because on 1971, December 23rd, 50 years after their liaison, Mary wrote to the vicarage in Plettenberg inquiring whether a professor emeritus, Dr. Carl Schmidt, is still among your parishioners, from whom she had not heard for 14 years. The late letter sounds as if Murray had been waiting all her life. The impression of an early strategic relationship with her academic ghostwriter is thus dispelled. It's very actually sweet. It's very, very sad, actually. It's actually a genuine touching moment of humanity. It's a beautiful moment of sincere, quote unquote, apolitical, unbased, or whatever you want to call it, humanity of Schmidt, actually, that, he had to choose a woman. And Dushka's a good wife. Dushka was actually very loyal. She was a good woman for the most part. Dushka was actually the thing is she was younger, so more fertile. She met him. She was basically a TA, teacher's assistant. If I recall correctly, it's the classic thing, but where girls. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. That's a great thing about no internet. You can preserve feelings of love like that instead of getting jaded, watching them get fat and old and divorced on Facebook. Oh my god! So I know for Schmidt is the type of guy to look at his ex's Facebook after 15 years. Absolutely, 10,000%. He would absolutely be doing that. It's sure this sense of love, even after the war, it's a crazy this woman, this Irish woman or this Anglo woman, at least Anglo associate. She would have the memes of the war, of World War II, the post-boomer truth regime. The messaging would be there, but despite that, she still remembers Carl Schmidt, and it's the love of her life. Vows. She still remembers the capital V vows. She uses the word vows of all long forgotten vows. It's actually very, very romantic and very, very sweet. It's a very sweet moment of Schmidt's life right there. Yeah, but he chooses Dushka. Now, to give it a little view of Dushka, obviously I do not have the thing in hand, but Dushka was basically TA. You know the classic meme of how to get a film bro boyfriend is to like go walk around Manhattan pointing at classical posters and not knowing what a camera is. Basically, she did that with Schmidt for all intents and purposes. She pretend nothing. There's nothing like catnip for theory cells for an art ho to pretend to be like to want to have like be mansplained to, right? To nothing turns on a man more than a woman asking you about Warhammer 40k lore, which is basically what she did. She basically did the 1920s theory cell equivalent of asking a man about Warhammer 40k lore. And and she's, oh man, Schmidt, you're so intelligent. Oh wow, you're so sophisticated. That kind of thing. He would take her to the opera and show him how well versed in the arts he is, and that kind of thing. And he loved that. It was very ego stroking, and I don't blame him. No comment on that. I'm not going to expand on that further. But so he eventually, like he's reluctant to pull the trigger on Dushka. He's reluctant to pull that trigger, but eventually he does. I forget the reasoning why. Right? I don't have the. I do have the book in front of me. I'm literally holding the damn thing, but finding the page will be a bitch for entertainment. Um, Now once I do the series, it'll be much more organized. But so he chooses her. At the end of the day, he does choose to be with her, and it's a beautiful little moment of and just goes a very loyal wife, all the way to the end. And they do have a sincere love. It's a real marriage. It's a capital M marriage. Well, not in the Catholic sense. Remember, he never got that annulled. But in terms of a partnership, in terms of standing by her man and him standing by her. Um, did he have a tasteful mistress? It's a tasteful mistress thing. It's just stress relief. But in terms of he did actually capital L love her. I can't even recall if actually if he did have a mistress or not. But yeah, he. Oh wait, no, he did in France. I think when he visited Junger, I think. But for the most part, it was very, very sincere marriage. Um, yeah, so that's real. His love life is deeply, deeply, very, very funny. I when I was reading about his relationship, I really do want to do an Art of Darkness style podcast on Schmidt. The entire, I'm going to do two streams. I want to do it'll be on a Camarilla, my Substack, so it's not just empty there. Um, I want to do it with a co-host. I need a co-host. I'm like Gio. I prefer to talk. I need someone to bounce off of. Mm. As you can clearly tell by the state of this live stream. But you see this. The Schmidt the man is so more interesting than Schmidt the meme, and Schmidt the meme is very interesting. Again, Schmidt is a great thinker. So I want to do two documentaries, basically. Basically long videos. The personal life of Schmidt, just the man. Touching on his theories, theory selling a little bit, talking about the theory a little bit, but it's going to be interwoven with the life of the man and the personalities, relationships, and so forth, and all the little side characters. Hugo, Franz von Cracker, also Junger. That's gonna be a great through line. Um, and then a documentary just covering all the books. I want to do a Micah Poll where we do a theory cell episode from concept of political theology, dictatorship, and ending, of course, with political theology 2, the sequel to political theology, his last full completed work. So in the entire oeuvre, because Schmidt, for the most part, he wrote very short books. For the most part, pretty damn short. His longest book, I think, is Dictatorship. That's like a 300-page chunker. But for the most part, his other books are mostly short. So it can be done. So I call it the Carl Schmidt special. The Schmidt special is I like to call it. So obviously, most likely, knowing how great I am with timelines. Us at Tookie's Mag, when we do the 1 year anniversary, it'll be over. 1 year is already long past. We're fashionably late to any event. We're aristocrats. We make our own time. We don't believe in the force to know most of the times. So yes, so Carl Schmidt, the gentle introduction to Carl Schmidt, the man, and to his work, to his oeuvre, as you see here. And I believe that all of this Straussianly explains his view on Hitler. And yeah, it's already 2 hours. I can say Hitler. And So to recap, basically, that's his love life. He calls him a maniac and an idiot during the Weimar era. He tries to get sensible centrists to cancel the Austrian corporal, basically, and basically throw him in jail. Um, In a lot of ways, January 6th moment. He basically wants a base world version of January 6th. Basically, all lock up all the rioters. Basically, that's his POV. Base world version of that, basically of the live view of January 6th. And then I just want to grill centrism, sensible centrism, Germanic centrism. So, but after that fails, and the Austrian corporal is in power, Schmidt basically goes, "Shit, my fucking career is just down. What do I do? What do I do? I'm a socialist driver. I need prestige. I backed the wrong horse. He's backed the wrong horse each time in his life. He backed the wrong horse in his relationships. He backed the wrong horse. He threw his dice with the establishment, with Hindenburg and with von Schleicher and with the Prussian I just want to grill boomer class. And they're getting wrecked by sensitive young men with the Austrian corporal. He's like, shit, what do I do? What does he do? He's like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna not have a career? Am I gonna get advanced in my career? Like, I need that prestige. He wants to be crazy ever since he was like 18, 15. He wants to climb the social hierarchy. So he basically joins the party. He joins the Workers' Party, the Germans' Workers' Party, with excuse me. He joins the Workers' Party, and despite Junger's warnings against it. And so he becomes a sycophant. He has a converter zeal. He has a brief meeting with the Austrian painter, shakes hands. Uh, he reminds you a lot of Marinetti, if you know the Italian futurist as Marinetti. Marinetti had much more closer relationship to Mussolini than Schmidt had to Hitler. They almost never talked, and as you know, the Austrian painter was not a theory cell guy. He didn't care for theory. He was not a theoretician at all for the most part. Um, so he got a cookie. He got the crown jurist, as you could see on the newspaper, crown jurist of Third Reich, right? He writes a big theory cell, masturbatory theory cell, masturbating how great the Austrian corporal was. Basically, he gets a cookie for it. The cookie that would be his death, basically. The golden crown that melts his skull, which is that title that will always haunt him to this day. Every time you bring it up, some libtard like, "Oh, the crown jurist," like you know what I'm talking about. So yes, so he gets the title crown jurist for like 5 seconds, and and so he gets, so he tries so hard to get prestige, and like basically take control. He's like, "Oh, I can have an impact. Oh, he will listen to me. Oh, I can still steer the ship." Von Schleicher at least listened to me to a certain degree. Von Schleicher at like 80% listened to him for the most part, and like a lot of the people in his corner. The thing is with the boomer centrists is that they were not coordinated. Like it was just there was too much conflicting of interest, and there were too. It's like what Mystery Grove talks about with the counter revolutionaries in Russia. They let their own petty squabbles. Like literally, like everything would be fine if von Schleicher wanted to do a Caesarist land reform, if I recall correctly, but von Papen had land, and so he was too like selfish, basically, literally bourgeois selfish to give up some piece of his land to maintain the structural order. There's literally the whole Caesar situation all over again. Um, and so if they just coordinated better, it would have been immensely easy. It's cartoonish how Germany ended up. It literally is a Coen Brothers film how Germany ended up. But and so yeah, so the Schleicher thing falls out. Schmidt has no influence on 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 the Austrian painter, basically none. The only person in his cabinet in the German the Natsok circle is his closest friend is a fellow bourgeois, fellow cultural hustler, fellow man of the pleasures. Is a you know him, you love him, um, and his name escapes me. Really, Luftwaffe. Come on. Oh fuck, really? Hold on. My brain's searching right now. Why am I forgetting this man's name? Oh, oh God. Oh God, hold on. All right, I'm actually I'm embarrassed cartoonishly. I know his man's name. I know his man. Fat. Oh God, hold on. Uh, Oof. Actually, also he has very interesting backstory. His father was either born in South Africa Let's see. Do Luftwaffe. Let's see. Hermann Goering. I said his name 5 seconds ago. Fuck. Yes, Hermann Goering. Oh my god. Very interesting. His actually life is very interesting. I was reading um a biography of him a couple of weeks ago about his ancestor, his great was actually head minister or like head economist or head of the treasury or minister of the treasury for Frederick the Great. Um, and also his father was I believe, was working for the German colonies, the handful of German colonies they had in Africa. Hermann Goering has also a very interesting life and a very interesting version also. I could see why they would be friendly with each other. There's certain similarities they have with each other. Goering, yes, thank you, Antonides, thank you, Goering. Um, yeah, so Goering was basically for the most part. Goering for the most part was a version of Schmidt, but is born to a higher class, basically. So Goering was friendly with Schmidt and would basically try to defend Schmidt and would try to get him into the ranks of the party. So Goering becomes Schmidt's contact and his leg in the door of the party, basically. And Goering would come to his defense, and he wants the theory. So Goering is trying to be a patronage of the arts, be a patron of the theory cells, and be a patronage of the arts. He loved his arts and Care and Hall and all that. Again, I really do like Goering. Goering was a good man, I think, overall. Um, and so Goering likes Schmidt and tries to defend him, but Schmidt gets attacks because if you're you could see clear as his anti him being anti German worker is it wasn't hidden. It was like public writings. Like it was clear as day. He actively like gave speeches saying, "Listen, the radical left and the radical right are gone too far. We need sensible centrism. Activate Article 45 and clear them out." Like it was very public. He publicly countersignaled the sensitive young men. He countersignaled the Austrian painter multiple times, and this is on record. So him basically being a minstrel, doing his minstrel show of being an adoring fan, most of these guys aren't falling for it. And so he and this is where the whole anti-Semitism thing comes into play. For the most part, Schmidt before the Austrian painter is not anti-Semite, other than like from time to time. One time his best friend that died was a Semite, and so he becomes friends with his brother, and of course he asks his brother's family for money, and so he has a and since the father understands that Schmidt was the best friend of his son, he literally gets a paycheck, a patronage. He has his own micro theme network. He's taking money from them. He's an Israeli shill, if you will, during the early years. He's getting money from his father's, his dead friend's father, who is a Semite. And but so he would go to a Charlie Chaplin movie and like he would hate the Charlie Chaplin movie. He talks about a Jewish friend taking him to a Charlie Chaplin movie. He's like, I can't stand these people. And their insipid sense of humor, right? He'll say this from time to time, and but Aldi felt he felt hit the struggle was it the ordeal civility because he would project himself and his life of him struggling with being a social outcast, of him being struggling with not being part of the bourgeois and being an elite aristocratic society. Like he would be self-insert into being Jews. He would actually almost say this verbatim in his diaries. So he shared in their ordeal, the ordeal civility. He literally shared in their ordeal civility. It's hilarious. I was laughing my ass off when I saw that part of the biography. So for the most part, it's a very give and take relationship with the semi community Schmidt has. And so when he goes full cartoon character, basically with it, it comes off as fake. It literally, people can tell, you can smell him just being desperate social striver with this. And he gives a speech actually about the JP about the problem, right in 1936, I believe, and the SS literally write to him, and this is in Gopal's biography. Yeah, again, two good biographies. Uh, Reinhard Meyring's biography, which is the one I'm using right now, which is about the entire life of Schmidt, cradle to grave, and his personality, and the Schmidt the man, and another biography called The Enemy by an Indian guy, Gopal, Gopal. he got his tenure removed because for SA, so he's right wing, um, despite being a POC. Yeah, so his biography of Schmidt, the intellectual biography of Schmidt, is also very interesting. Which focuses mostly on his theory cell work and a detailed explanation breakdown of all his theory cells rather than the man himself. Schmidt, the man, doesn't come through, but Schmidt, the theoretician, does. Um, so there's one moment he gives a speech in the university about the JP, the JP problem. Why would I say problem when P is already there? Whatever. But anyway, so about the problem, and an SS officer writes to him, like, "Why are you talking about this? It's clearly opportunism. The JP has already been solved. And this is in 1936. There is no problem anymore. We solved that problem. You're being a partisan. You're being like an SS officer basically says you're being a dilettante. You're being a provocateur. This is agitprop. Why are you giving anti-J speeches? You're just trying to get on our good side." Remember, this is 1936, right? So beautiful, divine foreshadowing, irony, all these things. All right, it's delicious. And so his cartoonish anti-Semitism, it just comes off as insincere, and it's blatant ass kissing, right? He's a hustler. He's a hustler. Schmidt is a hustler. He'll say whatever he needs to get ahead fundamentally, and to get that prestige. And so from his mild, just Joe Blow anti-Semitism, it becomes minstrel show anti-Semitism in 1936. It's so much so that even the German workers can see, like, dude, you're being a minstrel show to us. You're literally just it's pornography, dude. Like, it's cheap pornography. Like, it's like when a whore tells you she loves you. That's basically what he was doing to them. Is, I know you're faking. I know you're pretending. You're in public records saying that our leader should be thrown in jail and be killed. Like, there's no how much you pretend. You know what I mean? And so he basically makes it absolute minstrel of himself. The more and more further away he gets from power, the more and more he feels. Because again, his only contact within the high circles is Goering. Goering is the only one who likes him. The SS does not like Schmidt at all. Again, the Austrian corporal, not a theory cell, not at all. So Schmidt, he is so close to the levers of power, so close to being the philosopher, the court philosopher of the king, right? Philosopher and tyrants are always peas in a pod. Much like Marinetti, who was. Yeah, again, I would love to write an essay or do a video essay comparing Marinetti, the Italian futurist, with Schmidt. It would be very interesting in terms of comparing the two because they both are close to power at one point and fall away from the ears of power. Both of them want to be court philosophers and end up being spurned by the subject of their wants and desires, by their patrons, basically. It's a very interesting dynamic. So Schmidt then is basically totally shut out of the party, and totally shut out from politics, party politics, basically. Of course, he's still a member of the party, and so at the end of the day, for the most part, throughout World War II, he goes on a lecture tour, basically tours all over Europe, Romania, obviously Paris. Junger, who's I remember at this time. During World War II, Junger was an officer just chilling and vibing during occupied Paris, right? Paris was basically just Disney World for German officers at that time. Drinking wine, reading poetry, going to the opera, that kind of thing. So Schmidt just goes on a speaking tour, and the thing is, Schmidt was a workhorse. This man wrote for thousands of articles for journals, wrote for 1,000 magazines until his death, literally his death, until he got dementia. Sadly, he did have dementia. He eventually got dementia during the last 2 or 3 years of his life. And he died, I believe, in 1985. He outlived his own daughter, and he outlived his own daughter. His daughter had many grandchildren, so his genetic line was still preserved, but still, that still affects you emotionally to some degree. I mean, he didn't have a son, so it's still it's a bad situation. A bad situation becomes worse. So Schmidt outlives his own daughter, dies in 1985. The last 3 or 2 of those years, he gets dementia. So in reality, he lives until 1982. The Schmidt with the actual working brain lives until 1982. Why am I bringing this up? So Schmidt lives until 1982. Then, where was I? Oh yes. So he gets kicked out of the party. He goes on a speaking tour or a speech tour throughout Spain. He gives it on Catholic reaction, Catholic reactionaryism. Hangs out in Paris with Junger, and there's this iconic picture of him and Junger. I have here. It's a extremely iconic picture of him. Of course, Junger is in uniform, and the relationship with him and Junger is actually very, very interesting. Again, it's the story. Again, his relationship. The relationships were so intense back then. His relationships were, in general, relationships just seem to be so intense back then. It's really amazing. Um, the intensity of relationships are no longer there. Uh, oh, here we go. Praise the Lord. Here we are. So hold on. Let me download this picture, save image. 1 second, chat. There we go. Schmidt and Junger. There we go. So I'll give you a nice little timeline of their relationship here. I'll give you all a nice little timeline. It's a present, share screen. And thank y'all for staying this long. Actually, it's actually very short. It's only 2 hours. It feels like I was going to talk every 15 minutes, but it's been apparently 2.5 hours. So my strongest soldier, my baker's dozen of 8 people. Thank y'all for standing this long and hearing me talk. I appreciate it. So we'll go here. There we go. Let's see, entire screen window here. Share. Here we are. This y'all should see this. There we go. Schmidt and Junger. Here it is. So here's Schmidt and Junger in Paris, 1943. And obviously this is where Junger makes this canny remark on Schmidt becoming the crown jurist. For people who are listening, quote: "Upon the ascent of illegitimate powers, the position of the crown jurist becomes vacacious, and the attempt at filling it is made at the expense of one's good reputation. That's just how the misfortune of the profession would have it." Ernst Junger in his diaries, December 1943. As you see a picture of them in Paris hanging out together. And yeah, again, the relationship is very interesting. The relationship between Junger and Schmidt. Junger loves Schmidt. Actually, has a genuine capital L love for Schmidt. In his Paris diaries, he dreams of Schmidt. Schmidt actually appears in his dreams. He always says Schmidt is the most clearest thinker I know. Right, he is most clear cut, precise. He is a surgeon with thought in terms of how well he articulates his thoughts. And you can have a conversation with him about anything, and you always have an extremely unique take about anything you have a conversation with him with. They talk about poetry, religion, anything at all. So this is when the relationship was good. This is the Paris years. This is also a beautiful moment in time with Junger and Schmidt right here. And you'll see them later in life. And they have a very rocky relationship with each other, particularly on Schmidt's end. As I mentioned earlier, Schmidt was he was again a sensitive young man, and he wasn't immune to jealousy. And so this was in 1943, and then we'll fast forward to. Hold on. We'll fast forward to. Share. We'll fast forward to here. This is Schmidt's during his either 85th or 90th birthday. Schmidt obviously he's obviously getting mogged. Schmidt is a manlet, by the way. You will learn this very quickly. Schmidt was actually he was a short king. That's what Schmidt was. Schmidt was a short king, and you see Junger is absolutely mogging him. He still has his hair. He's not balding. He's taller than him. He's more physically fit. This is just sad. Look at this motherfucker. You can see him in the background. He's smirking. He knows this motherfucker knows. Like, man, that man's just getting mogged right now. He's absolutely just getting physiognomy mogged right now. So yeah, you can literally see the physiognomy just being playing out right here. You can see who's healthier and happier in life and who's more satisfied in their old age. This is Schmidt's birthday actually. This is actually Schmidt's birthday party right here, and Junger comes to his birthday party. Schmidt actually disinvited Junger multiple times. It's so weird. These men lived through World War II together. but the petty, like it's like literally boomer, like reminds me of my grandpa and his brothers actually, in terms of like, do we invite him to the birthday party? Do we not invite him to the birthday party? It's hilarious, the petty boomerisms of, will I have this man for dinner, or will I not have this man for dinner? It's just deeply amusing. It's very very funny boomer drama, like dinner, like it's hilarious. It's very funny. Um, so yes, you so their relationship lasted over decades. So this is probably 70. Yeah, again, this is easily 20 plus years after World War II, and so they knew each other up to their deaths. Obviously, Junger outlives Schmidt by 10 years. Schmidt, I believe, no, sorry, Junga or Junga lives until 1992, either 1992 or even 1995 or some ridiculous number like that. So he outlives the poor boy by a decade. Again, just objectively better genes than Schmidt, sadly, as you can tell by the height. And yeah, so their relationship through the decades is actually deeply deeply fascinating. Because Junger is going through his life in Paris is so interesting because he's like reflecting on philosophy, and like he doesn't even give it that much damn about the war. There's one story about Junger on a ski lodge. You know those little carriages on cables that go down mountains and so forth. So Junger is on a ski lodge for some reason, and there's a battle going down, and he's looking at the battle, like people dying, explosions, gunshots, and Junger is literally floating in the air watching these events happen. I don't know if this is a dream. I forget if this is a dream Junger has, or this is actually an actual capital or reality that's happening. But Junger actually is seeing these events. And he described it's like a painting. He references a well-known painter known for his landscapes. I forget the name of the painter. Uh, but so he's actually he's viewing these events, and it's like a deeply spiritual and deeply just otherworldly event for him to see these event history take place. It's like war. I think he talks about Tolstoy's War and Peace, to see history from this godlike lens, from this lens from above. It's a deeply moving thing for him. Junger is having this deeply reflective moment in Paris during the entire war, basically. And Schmidt goes there to party and hang out with Junger and talk about Herman Melville. They talk about Edgar Allan Poe. Junger is a Poe cell. He loves Edgar Allan Poe, and Schmidt loves Herman Melville. Actually, Herman Melville's like his favorite author. He compares him to Homer. Literally compares him to Homer. Uh, uh, so much so, and there's this one story by Herman Melville he references again and again. It becomes a code word between the two. Excuse me. It's the story of Benito Cereno. Yeah, he mentioned it to such a degree. Actually, I'll get the screenshot as well here. I'm getting sort of the hang of this. Let's see. Here we go. Save image. But actually, so much so his nickname for in Schmidt for his diaries would be Benito Carisco, Carisco, uh, which seems to be a nickname for like a Mr. Know It All, I believe it is to a certain degree, or a vague approximation of that term. To present, uh, there we go. Hold on, I should probably do slides, but yeah, again, they're all coming prepared. Um, Which the next stream will be more prepared. I wanted to do another rant actually. The Schmidt thing wasn't supposed to take this long, but let's see. Oh god, hold on. 1 second, y'all. 1 second. Let me go to my presentation folder. Here we are. Nope. Hold on. Let me put this up on screen. 1 second. Present. Share screen. Entire screen. Windows. Here we are. Here we are, chat. There we go. This is the quote of Benito Cereno. So this was in most likely 1943. Quote, he turned down invitation to Romania. At that time, Herman Melville's novella Benito Cereno became for him the most important reflection of the situation with National Socialism. He wrote to Junge, I'm completely overwhelmed by this altogether involuntary hidden symbolism of the situation I find myself within, or in itself. At the end of March, Schmidt spoke in Bremen. At the beginning of April, he asked again, "Have you read B. Sereno by now?" "Very important. Melville's greatness," Schmidt said, "lay in the capacity to create objective, elementary, and concrete situations. This makes Benito Sereno greater than the Russians and all other narrators of the 19th century. So that next to him, even Poe seems antidotal. And Moby Dick, as an epic of the sea, can only be compared to the Odyssey." Yes, so Schmidt is Herman Melville's strongest fanboy, basically. He loved whales. In one of his birthdays, the title of the birthday was the Schmidt. We're celebrating the birthday of Schmidt, the man who caught the Leviathan. Literally, that was the title of one of his birthdays. I think in his 70th birthday or 65th birthday was the title of the man who caught the Leviathan. And it's all about Moby Dick and of course Hobbes. And again, Hobbes, the Leviathan haunts. It's almost Lovecraftian. Yeah, he actually finds the book Leviathan deeply disturbing and haunting. And the more you read it, the more deeper it gets. Yeah, again, he loves Hobbes. Ever since he was a young man, Hobbes haunts Schmidt. So the story of Benito Sereno, it deeply haunts Schmidt, and he'll make references to Benito Sereno all the way to his death. So he reads it in the mid 40s, and all the way to basically near his death, he calls himself Benito Sereno. This story is he feels deeply sympathetic to his story. And what the story of Benito Sereno is that there's a slave captain, his captain who has a slave ship, and he's the captain of the ship. However, there's a slave Bobo, this elite human capital that we should totally let in. As long as they're high IQ, guys, what could go wrong, right? As long as they have more high IQ, right? So there's one high IQ slave there called Bobo. Bobo basically stages a coup. Sorry, taking a sip of Gatorade. Stages a coup on the ship and basically blackmails Sereno into basically taking him to an island so they can all escape, basically, and threatens him with death, basically. So this captain, quote unquote, is basically held hostage, and only two people know that's the case: Benito himself and Bobo. And right, and everyone's looking at this confused, like, why does this white guy look so? Why is he so on edge? He's the captain of the ship. Why isn't he? Why is he so on edge? And so, the reason why he views himself as Benito Sereno is that he thought he was the captain, and he basically calls the German Workers' Party the slaves in the scenario. He's like, I thought I could control them, but in reality, they controlled me. And Benito Sereno is my life story. Basically, that's his thought process in all this. He is Benito Sereno. He thought he was captain of the ship. In reality, he was enslaved by the own ship that he thought he was the commander of. It was a divine, it's the divine irony kind of aspect of it that he deeply felt reflected uh, his life up to that point, and all the way to the end. Hitler was his own Bobo. Basically, he thought he could control him. In reality, he controlled it. The Romans' control went the other way, and it's deeply sad. And it's a tragic thing when you read this, because you see this man put so much effort in himself, so much into his craft, into his work, into his prestige. Schmidt is a genius. Yeah, you could tell us by his work. He is one of the smartest men of his generation. He puts so much into his work, so much. He sacrificed anything of his personal life. His personal life is a wreck. The only thing that is clearly he knows what to do is be a damn good jurist. He is an excellent jurist, and he will fight tooth and nail to preserve his reputation as a jurist. And he does all of this just to, at the end of the day, fall back down and basically make a mockery of it all. And that's why the whole crown jurist thing is the most beautiful, sharp, and disgusting torture devices known to man, right? Because that term is what is that title was his chains, basically. He wanted a crown, and all he got was a slave collar, basically. That's what that title was, basically, a slave collar, and not a crown like he wanted. And it's deeply tragic story, and you see this going throughout. He was never happy. He was basically using these speaking tours, just kind of going with the flow. Basically, he really was just going with the flow, and throughout the entire war for the most part. And his house gets bombed, by the way, in Berlin. Half his, all his stuff is in rubble. Some books are preserved. As long as some wine is preserved. Thank God. He even says, "Hey, at least the wine is okay." I think in one of his diaries. Literally in 1945, he's getting literally the shit of his own house getting blown up. Basically, they live like refugees, and it's a atrocious, and they're kept in lockdown basically in Berlin until he's finally reunited with his wife, and then he gets sent to jail for the denazification process. And his diaries in jail are actually very interesting. And he barely gets to write to his wife. He's barely even allowed to write to Dushka, who's yet again who is the base trad woman who stands by her man no matter what. Yeah. And they're not translated. I forget the term, but you can actually get his prison diaries. They're actually very interesting. And he managed to get away mostly scot free. And even the libtard Americans admit he's a genius. They said near genius intelligence or something like that, aka genius. That's just a libtard coping for the fact he's objectively a genius. They do the same thing, Uncle Ted, right? Or Yaki. So they admit he's a genius, and basically it come to the conclusion, yeah, basically he did nothing wrong. But he is forever stained. He is forever stained. He's not allowed to practice law anymore. He can write for journals, and of course he comes running back to Catholicism. Yet again, it's opportunity. Again, it comes sometimes his relationship with the church really does come off as opportunist. Yeah, oh fuck, oh I'm not a Nazi, I'm just a good Catholic boy, that kind of thing. It comes off as that sometimes from time to time. Yeah, it's a tragedy. He ends up writing religion a lot, and so he retires basically. He's an old man at this point. He has some acolytes. He still has some true cell acolytes and students of his work who love and adore him. And of course, some people who have grudges and all these things. But the establishment hates him, and he can't have well, for the first 10 or 15 years after World War II, no journal will let him publish anything. He ghostwrites. He literally ghostwrites under pseudonyms and stuff like this, and he doesn't get to write for about 10 years under his own name. Um, and this trial lasts for a good long while until he finally is allowed. He starts publishing in Catholic journals. Yet again, he uses that loophole, basically, of being a proper Catholic trad boy, uh, to get to actually start to write in journals again. And again, he's a workhorse. Even after a war, he's a workhorse. And um, he writes political theology too. His last complete book. No, most of the Earth is also considered his masterpiece from his own self. When his wife was laying on her deathbed, sick, and of course, Junger offered help financially any way he can, actually. But of course, Schmidt, again, very, very bitter, wants to say no, but I believe he ends up taking the money. He literally leaves Nomos on the Earth, Nomos of the Earth on her dying deathbed to have with her. That book meant a lot to Schmidt. It's not an emotional book, you know what I mean? None of his books are like emotionally evocative, right? But he actually gave her his book to read when she was sick and dying at the time. So he's an old Mr. Schmidt. He's an old man, and he doesn't get to write for juries until as Schmidt. And of course, he has a giant chip on his shoulder. Giant chip on his shoulder. And this is where Junger, of course, waves his finger at him and says, "Well, what did you expect, dude? You backed the wrong horse." And he uses a German metaphor about all these libtards. They're like donkeys kicking you when you're already down, like a big getting donkey kicked, right? It's some German metaphor about a donkey kicking you when you're already down. And so the libtards are kicking him when he's already down. They're not letting him publish it. He tries to give a speech at a conference that he gets canceled. Basically, they won't even let him give speeches. And one of his friends literally asks him, "Hey, how about you try to write an essay on how great John Locke is?" Listen, my God, that's just a castration. That's castration for Schmidt, dude. Like how great fucking libtard John Locke is. Like, oh, thank God. Listen, Schmidt allowed himself to get low very many times. He could sacrifice a lot of his principles, but there's lows even Schmidt would not let him get himself down to. He could let himself be turned to a simp for a Croatian whore, and that's much more understandable and much more respectable than being forced to like actually write praising John fucking Locke. There's this great line from De Maistra, who Schmidt also loves. Hold on. Mm, sorry, I had to take a sip. There's this great line from De Maistra, I think, is just the hatred of Locke, John Locke, is the beginning of wisdom. Great banger line from De Maistra, and that's truth. And same goes for Schmidt. So obviously, he does not sacrifice his morals to debase himself to go to so low as to call John Locke anything but a retard. So, and he instead writes a book on Hamlet. I believe it's called Hamlet or Hecuba, and it does a pseudo theory cell, legal theory cell analysis of the play of Hamlet and Shakespeare. And of course, it ends up not being successful. Yeah, he has some issues with publishing houses and so forth. And he doesn't understand. He literally doesn't. Why? I thought what I said about Hamlet is very interesting. Like, why won't they? I obviously, my as a Shakespeare scholar, I'm pretty damn good. And of course, the punchline is, "Well, Schmidt, they don't like it because you were a N word," right? And that's the punchline for the first 10 years of his post World War II life. Um, yeah, it's not until the '60s actually treat him very well. '60s and '70s treat him very well. He meets Hannah Arendt, the Diet Schmidt, Hannah Arendt. He hangs out with George Schwab from the University of Chicago. If that name sounds vaguely familiar, if you read Concept of Political, he's the one who I believe translated it and does the forward for it. George Schwab was Schmidt's strongest soldier, and for the most part. And he's like, "Hey, listen," and Schmidt even tells him, "Hey, listen, in your forward, just give me some criticism. I'm fine if you criticizing me. Just make sure it's published. I want it to be published. Damn it." Like, Schmidt wants the spotlight. He needs the spotlight, right? So he's like, just make sure my book is published in English, and make sure my works are not forgotten. So he meets George Schwab. Is friends with George Schwab. George Schwab goes to Germany, I believe. He meets Schmidt face to face, and is a big Schmidt fanboy. So if the name sounds familiar, if you look at the Concept Political, the orange cover, I like the orange cover. Schmidt, the orange seems to suit Schmidt very well for some reason. So that's the very same George Schwab. So in 1960s, he's hanging out with Maoists. This is a theory partisan thing. There's a television interview. Apparently, is it? We only have clips of interviews with him. We don't have full interviews with Schmidt, sadly. Yeah, again, any German add-ons. There is whatever y'all's version of BBC is. I have the network. It's on the site. I showed earlier. There's somewhere just 2+ hours of Schmidt on German public radio talking about Concept of Political, The Austrian Painter, Friend and Enemy. 2+ hours of it somewhere in the mid '70s and '80s. There's 4 hours plus of televised Schmidt somewhere in the archives. But sadly, we only have bits and clips of his interviews on YouTube, even in the native German. So his daughter marries a Spaniard, and Schmidt black pills. So he's like, West has fallen. My daughter has married a Spaniard. It's over. Right? She does marry a Spanish lawyer, who doesn't speak German, by the way, and doesn't speak English, and so it's a wonderful father-in-law and son-in-law relationship where they can't even speak to each other. Now, his daughter, her name is, I think, literally Anime, if I recall correctly. Um, she's overall a good daughter. He does complain that when she gets married, she treats her father's house like it's a hotel and a gas station. No, petrol station. That's all my house is good for, basically. So it's a classic father kind of bitterly or melancholy reflecting that their child has fled the coop. Basically, he desperately misses his daughter. He loves his daughter. They generally, I believe, have a good relationship. During the war period, his daughter was born. I think she's a teenager during World War II. He uses connections to take his daughter to an opera. He actually has Goering's VIP seats for the opera. So Hermann Goering hooks him up with like the VIP front row seats or his booth during the opera, so she could see all the best shows. Yeah, again, common Goering W. Goering is a generally nice guy, and so Schmidt has a very good and deep love for his daughter, and his daughter does love him and stands by him throughout her life, and she has a bunch of kids. There's a great picture of old man Schmidt with his grandkids. Do I have that picture? I know I do actually, but did I post it on my Discord? Hold on. There's this wonderful picture where he's surrounded by his grandsons. Here it is. Um, he's surrounded by his grand. It's tragic yet again. And again, he had no sons. Schmidt had no sons. It's only through the maternal line. So there's a tragedy upon itself. But at least he did breed. So hold on. So this was, I believe, in the early 80s. This is the early. This picture that I'm going to show right now is the early 80s. Yes, it's a little blurry. I don't care. Schmidt and Sons. And I believe he had overall about a half a dozen grandchildren. This is back with a Catholic me, like LO Catholics breed like rabbits. This is when that was still the case. This is when it was still mostly the case. So hold on. Let me just get this up real. Present. Stop screen. Present. 1 minute. Here we go. Schmidt and Sons. Y'all should see it. A little bit blurry. Zoom in if you need to. Yep, this is Schmidt on his 95th birthday. Yet again, manlet. All his grandchildren are just absolutely mogging him. Literally every single one. The girl is mogging him. That's again. He was a short stack. He was a short king. A king, but a short king nevertheless. Yeah, so he had about, I believe, half a dozen grandchildren, if I recall correctly. All had successful careers, intellectuals, stuff like that. I don't know where his descendants are now today, sadly. But yeah. So this is on his 95th birthday. Should be still sharp as a whip, I think. On his 95th, I think he started losing his mind around 97 when his daughter died. So this is basically in microspect. This is Schmidt's full life, and the last living picture, the last picture ever of Schmidt is this picture actually of Schmidt. This is the last picture ever of his life, which is this. No, hold on, this one. This one right here is the last picture of Schmidt alive. This is two people would come to visit him all the time. Government officials, journalists, Maoists. For some reason, he leftist types would like tickle his toes from time to time. They would talk to him still. The radical partisan types would still tickle his toes from time to time. And he liked it actually. He liked talking with a leftist. He enjoyed intellectual debate. I think he just liked not being forgotten. You know, he talked with that bullshit libtard Kojev. Even him and Kojev were good friends. And Kojev, of course, is known as you should know them by their fruits. Of course, everyone in this chat will know Kojev from his student, or not his student, but his intellectual inspiree, which is Francis Fukuyama. We have Kojev to blame for the end of the history and Last Man. We have him to blame for neoliberalism. So yeah, fuck Kojev. Schmidt all the way, but Kojev and Schmidt respected each other enough as intellectuals, as educated men, to talk and discuss with each other. So this was in 1985, 1983, 1980 something. This is mid 80s. So Ronald Reagan is literally present in this picture, basically, and you can see Schmidt right here in the tasteful beige jacket. This is the last living picture of Carl Schmidt in his home. It's very cozy European home. It looks very cozy. You can see the little German. I forget the name of these things. Of the little cup handles on here. But yes, so this is it's serious when it's in color. This is probably the first picture of color. The very last picture of him alive is the first one in color. And so this is basically the life and times of Schmidt. And the thing with Schmidt overall, his legacy, of course, we all know him during the neocon wars. His legacy is brought up again. It goes completely quiet during neoliberal peak era of the 1990s. Schmidt's completely forgotten in the 1990s. Vaguely resurrected pseudo to a certain pseudo degree in the early 2000s. 2010s forgotten again, and only preserved through us, the DR. And and the thing is, on the American side, he's still on the version of DR during in the Yaqui intellectual circles and all these things. He's still preserved. Of course, there's also in the Yaqui fan club and in the Yaqui cells. There's a big debate: did Yaqui plagiarize Schmidt? If you read Kerry Bolton's biography and if you read Kevin Dugan's biography of Schmidt, not Schmidt, of Yaki. There is Kerry Bolton defends Schmidt from plagiarism accusations, Kevin Dugan or Coogan says Schmidt did. Oh, sorry, Yaki did plagiarize Schmidt. I think it's obvious that excuse me, Yaki obviously, especially as a lawyer, would obviously have read Carl Schmidt. Yeah, I don't think Yaki's ever mentioned his name, but there is similarities in their work, and I would say there is it's not emergent evolution. I at the very least, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There was some emergent evolution of ideas going on, but it's almost a certainty that Yaki read Schmidt. So so Schmidt's reputation is really only resurrected nowadays. Now that democracy, liberalism, and fine, it's always fact that John Locke was a retard and Montesquieu was a retard. Um, so Carl Schmitt is finally resurrected nowadays, and that's why you can see his biography here, and that's why you saw the book from Hell guys doing an interview with the Swedish professor on Schmidt. Good, it was a good interview. Um, it was a pretty damn good interview. Jack gave some very good questions. I could feel Jack is so literally me in that interview because he feels so blue balled because he wants to talk for like 3 hours, but he only has the guy on and a pod on for an hour and a half, so he still has so much left over questions. I'm like, he's literally me. He's literally me. I've been talking for 3.5 hours, and I still feel like I have so much left to talk over. Uh, um, yes. So this is just a demo of basically what I want to do of a half-ass demo of the Schmidtmas special of a full combined. It's going to be a two-parter. The entire life and times of Carl Schmidt is both the man's life and his work. And I guess there's this great video from Justin Murphy of all people. It's like, if you read 3 books on any given subject matter, you know more about that subject matter than 90% of the population. Well, I've read 2 biographies of Carl Schmitt, and from my knowledge, there's not a third in English anyway. So, like, I know more than the average bear in terms of Schmidt and his life. Um, so yeah, so that's the life and times of Carl Schmitt. Now, uh, what I wanted to do was rant a little bit about pulp culture slop. Um, actually, hold on. Actually, I will briefly chat. I do need to take a piss. I do need to take the piss pill. So one moment, please, while I piss on my elite Baker dozen 7. Just give me one moment as I take the piss pill. One second. Oh, all right, back. Sorry about that. I'm actually shocked that the 7 of you are still here. I mean, we are my tough tuggers. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for staying this long. But yes, so the Schmidt arc is completed. Actually, hold on. Do I have a picture of his gravestone? It's very fitting. Yeah, he again. Noah's of the Earth is he considered Noah's of the Earth his masterpiece of his later life. Uh, hold on. He considered the hold on. Yeah, Noah's the Earth was his masterpiece of his later life, basically. So much so he literally put Nomos on his grave, I believe. The man who did nowhere of Nomos, I believe, or something along those lines. Hold on. Do Yeah, in verse 3 of the Odyssey, Odysseus is said to have seen cities of many people and to have learned customs. And it quotes in Greek. The jurist Smith emphasizes the nomos as the last message, as the sense unit of a place. And you can see right here. Hold on. You can see right here. Hold on. Oh God. Hold on. Live stream yards. Present. Stop screen. Present. Share screen. You can see right here. There we are. Here we are. You see right here. This is his grave, actually, right here. It's a quote from the Odyssey talking about nomos, and he puts an emphasis on the word nomos here. This is his grave right here, actually. It's I think it's actually a national landmark, or well, at least it should be. It's considered a historical landmark at the very least. I would love to visit the grave. You can see it's in Platenburg, or wherever. I'm not gonna say that full German name, but it says where the thing is right there. And so yeah, so this is the end of Schmidt. Actually, I would give it. I wish the grave was a little more symmetrical. Um, Not the most aesthetic tombstone, but it's a tombstone, and it gets the point across. The man, the myth, and the nomos of Carl Schmidt, and it's a beautiful thing, nevertheless. And yeah, so yeah, this is the website, by the way, for anyone who wants more details about Schmidt's biography. This is Carl Schmitt's Gesellschaft EV. And it's German, basically. From the looks of it, this is also the first picture ever of Carl Schmitt right here. Is this the students' dormitory 2? This is 1902, 1903. This is him in the middle right here. And this is his teenage years. And yeah, he actually does look like a chud. Like literally, they put the chud face on him with the glasses and everything. This is a peak chud of Schmidt during his teenage years. He's his father and his bitch mom apparently, and this is the the earliest picture we have of Schmidt, of him in the middle. Yeah, so the total life and times of Carl Schmidt. So now what I wanted to discuss was we'll do some pop culture slop. What I wanted to discuss partly was I got a request from a mutual good friend, Orca, I believe, Dark Orca. He's like, "Hey, you did a great Fallout speech on Twitter Spaces. Do you have that recorded anywhere?" I'm like, "Well, the space was recorded, but if you want an MP3." I asked Perplex the AI, "Hey, how do you record streams?" I sent a screenshot of them. I was busy at the time, so I was like, "Hey," I sent it over to him, and so I sent it over, and he's like, so with the Twitter Spaces, what I do multiple times. I used to do it every Thursday in honor of Rachel Haywire of the National Futurists. Um, good friend of the show, or a friend to me of Ezra Runaround, my cousin's Twitter account, which I occasionally use from time to time. This is his PFP. He also is a great appreciator of Catcher in the Rye, Oswald's Spurker acolyte, and of course the great author Adam Moose Rhinespecs, and his excellent masterpiece of a novel, Mixtape Arborea. And so, for the most part, I've been doing those Twitter Spaces for a whole month. I did Twitter Spaces on Thursdays, and obviously they'll go winding into the night, all the way until like 4 in the morning. And I think it's actually 4 in the morning for me right now. Actually, yeah, 4:11. And so I gave this great speech on the Fallout franchise, a Bowden-esque speech. Actually, hold on. Do I have a good picture of Bowden? When I talk about Bowden, he's a deeply visual, iconic man. I should have Bowden on when I talk about Bowden. There's this excellent speech he has on, well, both Lovecraft. His speech on Lovecraft was excellent. There's also an excellent speech he gave on the Nietzschean Credo, which I believe is probably his most spiritually impactful speech on me, was the Nietzschean Credo. That was an excellent speech Jonathan Mountain gave. But I was giving a Bowden-esque speech on the Fallout franchise. As you know, I'm a big gamer, a capital G gamer. And the Fallout franchise, it means a lot to me. And so I gave this great Bowden-esque speech I gave on the entire franchise, well, 1 through New Vegas, and yes, including 3. 3 is actually objectively better. If you notice, my Twitter account, Gabe Underground, was literally banned because I dared to threaten the evil Todd Howard, a genuinely malicious, the malicious cultural parasite that is Todd Howard. With I threatened him in Minecraft. I dare I say I was going to pirate Skyrim. A fate that was probably worse than death is not being able to make money off Skyrim, for Todd Howard anyway. So that's why Gabe Underground. It's called Gabe Underground here, but in reality, I'm using my cousin's account, Ezra Runaround. Um, and the TV show just completely destroys this thing I dearly love. And oh, by the way, speaking, since we're talking about post-apocalyptic, Geo just did a great content minded on Mechanical for Leibowitz, which inspired Fallout, which is one of the greatest post-apocalyptic stories ever. Is Mechanical for Leibowitz. That book is amazing, and Geo's 3+ hour theory selling on it is a masterpiece. So I highly recommend going to page a shilling, giving a couple shillings to Geo and watching his theory selling for 3 hours on Mechanical for Leibowitz. And the show is just a debauchery. The show is disgusting overall, and it made me appreciate Fallout 3 way more. I genuinely love Fallout 3 now. I'm so sorry. I did not know how good we had it with you, Fallout 3. Like, because Fallout 3 could have been an amazing story. The skeleton of Fallout 3 could have been an excellent story for a television show. And because you look at that damn show, and it's slop. There's no ethos. There's no energy. There's no life. There's no weight. Say what you will about Fallout 3. The area design and the overall archetype and the mood of it, there was a weight to it. Like, look at this. Right here we are. There we go. Look at this. There's soul to this. Though you see the Capitol building, there's a symmetry, and the protagonist is a lone hero. He is a young male. He is a 19-year-old. Canonically, the Fall 3 protagonist is a 19-year-old male, right? And he is a young boy. As a hero's journey, right? As a journey of the young man going forth upon the world again. It mirrors Fallout 1. Now, Fallout 1 is straight up Nietzschean Superman shit, right? The Fallout 1 story is great. Actually, it may give you just this is the wonderful red pilling moment of my life. Was this Fallout 1 ending? We'll watch this together. Hold on. Uh, Here, actually, as a zoomer, I'll go put this. I'm not gonna bore y'all to death with the last 5 people watching this. So as I watch everything, I'll put this in 1.5 speed. There's only 2 minutes, but this ending is the most red pilling things in my life. I'll be showing y'all right now. So hold on. Stop screen, present, share screen. Here we are. Now this should work. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
You've done it. That's wonderful, amazing. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, what you've endured. There's no way the people of the Vault can ever thank you enough for what you've done. You've saved all our lives. Who knows? Maybe even saved the human race. Yes. That makes the rest of this even harder. Everyone will want to talk to you. Every youngster will look up to you and want to emulate you. And then what? They'll want to leave. What happens to the Vault if we lose the best of a generation? What if we are the only safe place in the world? You just gave us back all these lives. I can't take the chance of losing them. I've made a lot of tough decisions since I took this position, but none of them harder than this one. You saved us, but you'll kill us. I'm sorry. You're a hero, and you have to leave.
right there. This is the philosophy of the bug man, right? This is my introduction to the philosophy of the bug man. This is my 15-year-old brain when I first played Fallout 1. I could not understand this for the life of me, right? You see that, and there's the philosophy of the stake. There's the therapeutic stake in the microspec. Fallout 1 is a story of an Ubermensch, of a Zarathustrian figure, right? It is the idea of a man coming down the mountain. He literally does come. Fallout, remember, Vault 13 is in the mountains of California, and he goes through this journey, this beautiful, this story it is a Faustian journey. It is a figure of the man imposing his will upon the earth, upon civilization. Of the Fallout dweller, Fallout 1 is an Abrahamic figure, right? He is built upon all civilizations come from him in terms of the canon and the civilizations of the world of the Fallout franchise, of the Fallout world space. And you see this, and it is beautiful, right? The Vault Dweller is the patriarch of civilization. He is the patriarcha. He is the Carlislean hero. And you see that philosophy here. It is the fear of true life. The overseer is the manifestation of yeast life. It is capital Y yeast life, right? He admits he's a hero. There's this great line. There's this great line from Nietzsche as well. The what something along the lines is the destiny of every nation produced 5 or 6 great men. Yes, but then to get around them, right? The nation and the man is always in conflict. The herd and the master is always in conflict. The Vault Dweller has become a master. He has become a capital M man. He has enforced his will upon his earth, right? He has become his own sovereign. He has become his own entity upon himself, and he cannot go back to the polity of the vault. Though he has become too large, he has grown too large for the world. Much less, he's grown much too large for the vault and vault life and the mere life of vault existence. And the overseer, his entire entity, as a state of being, his existence is the mere preservation and continuation of just comfort and a life in the vault. He's terrified of the outside world, and he's not terrified. In fact, he knows life in outside world can be lived. He sees us in you, the hero. He calls you a hero. He's afraid of sincere life, of capital L life, life with pain. Like the pain of going upon a mountain, of climbing atop a mountain from the bottom to the top, and asserting your will from above there, right? Of being willing to be judged and of throwing the judgment back at the world around you. He's supposed to be in a permanent state of safety. It's like a vault as a maternity blanket, as a comfort blanket. You see that within him. The job of the overseer's entire reason of existence, is reason d'etre, basically, is to merely preserve the status quo of existence, of mere life. Yeah, vaults, the peaceful vaults, or Vault 13 is supposed to be this incubator of yeast, and just the endless continuation of mere life, rather than life of any purpose. What he sees before you is life with a purpose, not just a mere continuation of life, but actually achieving something, actually going out there and imposing your will upon the world, and achieving that will to power, saying, I don't want to merely exist. I don't want merely to have calories in, calories out, and watch my television. It's saying no to that. It's saying, no, I want to feel the pain of climbing a mountain and seeing the world from above. Seeing men of great height. The Vault Dweller has become the highest of highs, and he cannot go back to the cave. Right? It's he cannot go back to mere yeast life of the vault life, and it's a beautiful story. It's a archetypally just right wing. It's Fallout 1 is deeply just intrinsically reactionary in its aesthetics, in its vibe, in its narrative. Right, the Vault Dweller is canonically male. He is canonically a young male, canonically in Fallout 2. The Vault Dweller was a male, not a woman. So if you play it as a woman, you can get fucked. It's canonically a male. He canonically marries a base a based right wing mestiza, foundational tribal American. He becomes a Castizo futurist. He becomes an Prim Castizo futurist. Founds his own nation, Arroyo, which is Spanish, I believe, for like river, and he becomes a foundation of his own people. He forms his own ethnos, right? Literally Abrahamic. He becomes a founding of his own ethnic group, basically. He says no to technique. He says no to technology. He casts his away because he sees what technology has done to man, right? Both in terms of the vault and in terms of the master. The master and the overseer come from a two different. They found from the foundation they have the same belief. Master just wants a preservation of life, but what does his preservation of life do? Of the super mutant, it's castrated. The mutants cannot breed. They have no vril. They have no seed. Their seed is barren. They are hollow animals or hollow beasts. They cannot build a foundation of blood. They can only merely coast off of their present being. Can never go higher or lower. Just mere continuous existence. They're literally born from the slop of the FEV virus, right? It's the master is just the evolution of the overseer, grown like the philosophy of the therapeutic state en masse, the homogenization of man, the technique of man, right? It's literally a fusion of the therapeutic state and the managerial state. The master is a Tower of Babel. You can even view it in religious terms. You can review it in ethnic terms or ethnos, and you can view it in anti-therapeutic state terms. The master is a fusion of all three of those beliefs, and it is the preservation of mere least life. The master will preserve life for the wasteland. Men cannot be trusted to. Only I get to have free will. Everyone else must be castrated slaves. And once that's his version of life. It's not real life. These super mutants are just golems. They will never find their own people. They will never truly have an ethnos because they're literally incelibate. The only person of a will and a divine will is the master, and even that is crooked because he knows that that will dies with himself, and that will can never be in perpetuity, go on and grow on from his foundations. Those seeds will never grow. And he, as a gardener, he has planted these seeds, worked his hands to bone for nothing. And the master comes to that realization and realizes he was in the wrong. And the overseer does not come to that realization. He still thinks he's in the right. The master understands his follies at the end, and he chooses to kill himself. And rightfully so. He sacrifices himself and realizing in his failures of his debauchery of the human potentiality, the debauchery of greatness, the debauchery of potentiality of strength and a will and a position, while overseer hides away deeper into his rabbit hole, hides deeper into treating humans like rats, of just mere beasts, mere cattle. He or she's harder into the position. Um, the master realizes in his failure what he has done wrong. The overseer doubles down in his failure, and at the face of greatness, of the face of real life. The master loves the vault dweller. In the vault dweller, he sees what he wants. He wants his version of the superhuman, the Superman, the master race. Even he uses the term master race. The vault dweller is a personification of that master race. He has achieved throughout these. This one man has achieved more than the entirety of his slop creatures that he has created. Right, the vault dweller comes from down upon the mountains, saves the entire wasteland, imposes will upon each of these groups, solves the situation. This one man influences his entire institution, goes through hell and back, destroys his vats, everything. This man has done more than the master has done through decades of his life, through his own will. And the thing is, what's different between the master and his own creations is that the Vault Dweller was born and he can create more of himself. He is the foundation. His seed will grow on from without him. He can breed, while the super mutants are only just Gollum simulacrum, the debauchery mockeries of God's perfection, of Volt's perfection, aka the Vault Dweller. And so if the master realizes he can never have the great purity of what is standing before him. And he in the face of that failure, he decides to take the gentleman's way out, which is a self-destruction. And so it's beautifully gothic. It's the master is a beautiful, a tragic hero at the end of the day, and the banal villain of it all, the banal evilty, the Longhouse is a true villain, which is the vault, the mere preservation of mere life, which is the overseer, as you saw in that clip. And I remember so much when I was 15, when I was more of a normie. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand, why would the overseer say no to the vault dweller? Why would he kick out the vault dweller? Of course, after everything we've experienced, COVID and everything, it's very obvious why a weak soul, a man with no soul, a man with no chest, would look upon the beauty and perfection and the will of the vault dweller and see someone who has dared to live And the thing is, the potentiality. He doesn't want to see to look upon him as a hero. He even says this. He's afraid of showing these people that there is more to life than mere existence. There's more than life than being mere sheep and mere cattle, right? There's more to life. There's more potentiality of life. There's life with a concept of height. You can go higher. You can the pig looks down upon the trough like a Bowden talks about this in terms of Shakespeare, right? It's about looking up towards the stars. It's about raising it up, not like a pig looking at his own food trough. It's looking up to the stars, looking up towards the heavens to go higher and to go higher horizons and beyond higher heights. That is the point of art. That is the point of culture, is to go forever on higher beyond the boundaries that was laid before you. Right, and that's what the Vault Dweller has done each and every time. He has gone beyond the horizons of each of these bends. He's gone beyond the horizon of even a godlike being like the Master. Right, through his sheer own personal will, his own determination, his own strength of his own will, he has gone beyond even his horizon of potentiality of being. And it's beautiful. It's an amazing experience, the thing to see. And it's deeply Nietzschean of the Fallout One. It's deeply Nietzschean, and you see this, or definitely Bronze Age mindset build, if you will. And the Vault Dweller is a founder of nations through chaos and through destruction. All war is the father of all people, and the war band is the uncle of every son. If you catch my drift. And he creates a manner bond. He creates his life free. The pirate as a figure of freedom, fanged freedom, freedom with fangs. He'd much rather go off and be a tribal than to be, quote unquote be amongst the civilized yeast life of the vault. And what happens in Fallout 2? They get slaughtered. Right, the opening animation of the vault is the Enclave finally opened the vaults. You see the silhouette of the Vault Dwellers, and they just get absolutely fucking murdered. They get slaughtered and enslaved by men with stronger wills and stronger strength, aka the Enclave. And then you play as your descendant in Fallout 2, and you play as a person trying to relive the glories of your ancestor. It literally is ancestor worship. It's literally it's like that's great story with Ovid in the Aeneid. Yes, it's the Aeneid, right? Where Ovid portrays Augustus as a descendant of, I believe, what was the hero? Not Achilles. Who is Oh yes, of Aeneas, right? And Aeneas, where he claims Octavius is literally like a divine of his ancestors, the hero of Troy. That the Octavian Caesar is literally a descendant of the heroes of Troy, right? Where it is a divine blood right. He is fulfilling his role of the blood right of a founder of his people, of a founder of his nation, much like Octavian Caesars and the Caesar of his father were acting out their roles of their holy and righteous ancestors in saving Troy and founding Rome. So too does the Vault Dweller, and the descendant of the Vault Dweller. I forget what's the name of the Fallout 2 protagonist. The chosen one, literally the chosen one. The chosen one is living out the archetypical foundations of his ancestor, of his great man of history, the founder of his nation, the patriarch, right? The oldest root, the founder of the ethnos of his tribe, of his people, and of the civilization itself. The New California Republic would not exist without the Vault Dweller, right? Without the Vault Dweller himself, the New California wouldn't even exist. And so he lives up to this, and again fights managerialism again in terms of this weird neocon endless war, endless conquest of the Enclave, right? They have techniques. Yet again, they're instead of mutating to human, they want to get rid of the mutations. It's eugenic, right? Which is nice and all, but it's still fundamentally relying on technique. It's relying on these old, decayed, and rotting systems of the old world, right? On managerialism, on politics, on these wearing these old rotten floorboards as a foundation of politic, while imposing your own will and birthing a new politic, and birthing a new nomos, on this decayed, decrepit things, these institutions of America and presidency and all these things. They just want GAE but based. That's what the Enclave want. It's just the global American empire but based, right? Or the closest thing, a neocon version of baseness. And honestly, objectively speaking, the Enclave are good guys. I would objectively say that. Objectively speaking, if their plan was successful, it'd still be a relatively good deal. I'm not necessarily even saying I'm not countersuing the Enclave necessarily, but they don't have a lived culture. Like they're doing the ghost dance, as Dave Distributors said. They're ghost dancing the imagery of the American symbolism, the American flag, the term, the presidency, the founding fathers. They're ghost dancing. They're LARPing these beliefs. They're LARPing these symbols, but they do not live the symbols. That's the issue. While the chosen one, he has to live. He has to earn the right to wear his ancestors' vault suit. By the way, via the Tron in the very beginning of the game, he earns the right to wear the vault suit of his ancestors, and he must walk into his footsteps. He must actually live the experience of having to impose your will upon the earth again. He has to go through the struggle. A birth comes with struggle. There is no birth without struggle. There's no birth of a people without struggle, right? And without an enemy, without just taking the easy way of killing everyone on Earth and then replacing it only your guys. It's the cheap route. There's no it's not glorious conquest. There's no struggle in that, right? The chosen one and his people gain strength instead of running away from people, going away from a struggle, going away from the fight, away from slaughter, like the Vault Dwellers. In much way, the Enclave is running away from the fight as well. They're trying to take the cheap shot and just killing people via technique, via this virus, via this plague, rather than going forth with the holy war, the holy struggle, the ultimate personification of the friend and enemy. Our tribe gains our strength from the reversion and a negation of the enemy tribe. You see this via the chosen one. He grows. Literally, like a game mechanic. You only get experience points when you have conflict, when you fight, when you resolve situations. Right? He only becomes a hero of his people once he actually embodies the footsteps and lives the actual shape of his ancestors and his actions, right? And follows in the footsteps of going against struggle, feeling the struggle within his own hands, and breaking its resistance within the palm and strength of his own hand. That's what the chosen one does, and that's where he finds his own nation. The Enclave fail because they're trying to live on foundations that are rotten and no longer living. The chosen one, the symbols and the strength of the Vault Dweller is still so alive and so rich and so fresh to the world around him that he can live onto this symbol, but not only clinging onto it, but embodying it and struggling with the world in that suit of his ancestor's soul, in the shape of his ancestors' actions, right? That's what the Vault Dweller does in Fallout 2. Yet again, the right wing reactionary through line, the Fallout franchise is deeply reactionary. I'll probably do a whole stream on Fallout eventually. I'm a little scattershot here, but you can overall see the shape and the mood of what I'm saying here. And you see this in Fallout 3 with actually, you know what? I'll probably do. I'll do a schlop thing. I'll do a Fallout TV show review as a stream, and do a whole Jonathan Bound and Evola Spangler speech just on comparing the show and why it fails fundamentally, and the reactionary kernel, the reactionary truth of the Straussian truth of the Fallout franchise. But I think I'm finally going to tap out now at, especially after, since it's 4 a.m. I think I'm going to finally tastefully tap out now. Um, Thank you all 9 people who are here for staying this long. You are my top tuggers, my toughest tuggers. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank y'all so much for everything. I truly do mean it. This the whole podcasting thing and being a part of his podcast with the 2 great guys, Capitalismo and David, some of the most sharpest, brilliant minds I've known, and getting to know so many of these people, so many of these, honestly, the greatest minds of my generation, really, of men who generally act out their beliefs and generally want the best for civilization. It was an amazing, amazing time, and thank you, Retronus. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Uh, um, yeah, so yeah, but I'm very thankful for, you know, for this scene. It's been nothing but an absolute blessing in my life for the last year. So, thank y'all for everyone. And yeah, I'll see you on the next stream. So yeah, good night and good tugging.